intro music and all that stuff. Oh man. See if we have someone in there yet. Oh, Eastland Burkholder. Thank you. And thank you again. We are now live, and you're just hearing just a conversation in progress, everyone, because I'm not used to just starting out cold like that. I always have the music doing it, and I got a chance to fiddle around before and all that stuff. But so that's going to be an adjustment for me after 11 years of having the my wonderful theme song. Which good God, I played it for 11 years. Can't remember who it was. Was it Iggy Pop? I don't know, who was it? No, it wasn't him. But it was from the Repo Man soundtrack. No, which
you
I
play
love.
Iggy Pop now. You play Iggy Pop now. You won't be around for much longer.
Oh yeah, you can't do anything here. No, you can't play. I know there's certain types of music you can play. Now, one of the things I'm not clear on, and it's a dumb question, but dumb or not, you should ask it anyway. I need to find is if you play. Do they get you if you just even play just snippets of songs, or just if you play the whole damn thing?
I think it's either transformative or up to like 8 seconds, 8 or 9 seconds is what my understanding is. But it really, I guess it depends, because do you check into Midnight's Edge After Dark and see what Tom does every now and then? I don't even want to talk about it for fear of ruining the good time, so to speak. I know there are those out there.
Huh. No, I haven't. I know he's on live right now, actually. I just noticed.
Yeah. Check out and see what he's. If you can open another tab, see what he's doing right now.
Oh, I mean, right now? Are you doing it? I know he's on live.
He's doing it right now. That's what I was listening to when you buzzed in.
Rebel Alliance Radio. Wow. I'd have to check that out. I can't really open another one.
Yeah. Right now. Basically, it's music from film and television.
Okay.
It has to be from film and television. Doesn't matter what it is. Could be a song, could be a score, whatever. And he'll get struck down, and they'll pull the feed after he's done and say, but while it's on live, he I mean, more gets on than most, but I mean, he can't make any money on it. There's no money being made on it at all.
But he won't get in trouble.
Well, he gets in trouble to a certain extent, but not into like lose your channel trouble. It seems like.
Oh, okay, all right.
But he's not. Okay. But he's not monetized. I think you have a button in where you can go in, you can demonetize it before you even start, and I think he does that, which kind of takes some of the heat off his back. But
all right. Huh.
But like you, I think if you're trying to get enough content so that you can monetize after you have 1,000 subscribers or however many it is in however many hours you need of content. If you demonetize your content, I don't know if it counts towards getting you monetized. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I got it. Well. Cool. We'll get there one of these days, probably. But yeah, I was just wondering that, and I could get along without the music. I mean, I used to have fun with my soundboard, but that's over too. We don't even have that on this StreamYard thingy. But
I had an interesting situation happen last night on Gary's stream.
I saw a bit of that. What happened?
Well, I'll send super chats in to these guys because, as far as I'm concerned, it's like going to the movies or renting a movie. I'm paying for 2 hours of entertainment.
Sure.
So it doesn't bother me to super chat, because if I was, like I said, I travel a lot, and if I didn't have the entertainment, I'd lose my mind.
I understand.
So anyway, I wanted to send something funny to him. What was it? I was going to ask the question. Is the statement, "Are you out of your cotton picking mind?" Is it racist?
Of course.
As a joke.
Of course.
I don't know it is or not. I think it's pretty harmless, but there are people out there who get offended by everything. So,
sure.
And, at the end of the day, there's no malice behind saying that kind of phrase unless you think about it going into it. But anyway, so I sent it as a joke, and I had sent through two super chats already, and they were just easy stuff. whatever I had put in there. It's talking about. There was nothing controversial or anything in there that would perk anybody's eyebrows. They go straight through. I put this one in, and I get the buffering ring of death. It just goes in. I put it in, and I push the button to send, and to put in because they ask you for a password to get in to be able to pay for it. And I'm getting the ring of death, and it takes about, I don't know, a minute and a half to get to the screen to put in the password, which never happens. It just goes right to it. And then I put it in, and then it goes buffering again. And then it comes back and tells me there's an error, and it couldn't go through, but that I wasn't charged. And I'm like, that's crazy. And I got to talking to Tom about it behind the scenes, where I was actually DMing him while Gary's show was on. And then Gary read the super chat that I posted later, which was, there has got to be words out there that maybe aren't flagged as you can't say this on YouTube, but that they prefer you not say on YouTube. So they're going to make it difficult for you to put in a super chat.
Could be.
And it was like the only thing. And then to try to prove my point, the next I sent him another super chat after I tried sending this one. Like after 5 minutes and like 10 tries of trying to get this thing going, I'm like, enough of this. So I was like, great show, Gary. Bam, right through.
Wow. Yep. I guess the word they probably, I don't know, for some reason have, I guess it's hard to believe, maybe the word racist itself rather than cotton picking, which is so obscure they might not, but the word, maybe they don't want him. I mean, it could be the algorithm doesn't like the word racist.
It's quite possible. I think there are trigger words that alerts the bots, because I don't know how many humans are actually looking at the streams anymore, that alert the bots to say that, hey, this stream's a problem, and then starts giving it shadow banning it and ghosting it and giving it all kinds of trouble and what have you. No,
yeah, it's probably the way it is, man. Crazy stuff. Eastland Burkholder, again, thank you for being here. Latino Slant. Paulie, all right, a fellow up-and-coming brand new YouTuber is with us here, and I am just as honored as I can be to have you here, sir. Thank you, and thank you, Eastland, for being here. Eastland said a bit ago, I have gotten inspired to make my first figure, but it might not work out to be anything but a failure and trash, hard times on planet Earth. Figures, that mean when you say figure, are you a customizer of figures? Or am I reading that right? Or what do you mean exactly there? If so, that's damn cool. If you're a customizer of figures, unless you mean something else there, please elaborate if you would. Again, everyone, go to tell us how to find your channel, Latino Slant. Paulie, who is again just getting started. He's starting to do some videos, and he is a new but great friend of Clobberin Times. So, and again, we just started out talking. I didn't even announce the show or anything. I'm so unprofessional, so off my game without the opening music. This is, of course, everyone, Clobberin Time issue number. Yes, I say issue number because we're comic geeks here. Number 5. And I want it. In retrospect, maybe we should have done this last week, so it would have been number 4. Hint, nudge, nudge. That would have been nudge, nudge. Say no more.
That's droll.
Just like I would love to have somebody to talk the prisoner with for my next show so I can make it number 6. And I'm trying to get someone to talk Blake 7 with me. He's a gentleman that I just saw on the great stream of my new friend, the TARDIS song with Noel, one of a problem being who was a great fan of Minister, has talked to me. He and I are going to talk Blake 7 one night. Maybe I should make that, try to get him for show number 7 because I'm superstitious. I don't know.
Speaking of the prisoner, I give a shout out to somebody else's channel because that's about to start happening. Have you paid attention to what's going on? It's heel versus babyface and
I know he's a fan.
Him and Robert Meyer Burnett are going to every other week. He does on Tuesdays bags and boards every other Tuesday with Gary.
I enjoy that.
Well, on the opposite Tuesdays, he's going to have Robert Meyer Burnett on there, and they're going to go through all 17 episodes of The Prisoner.
Damn them! It's a good thing I'm a fan of them, or I would hate them because no one should be allowed. I was talking to Tooncock about this on his Discord thing he did last week. We were talking, and someone mentioned that they were going to be doing that, and Tooncock said, "Well," and jokingly said, "I should be the one talking about The Prisoner." And I was telling him, I said, "Tooncock, man, if it wasn't you, anyone else, I'd be right there with you. Only I should be talking, Prisoner, but of course you're Doomcock, so you should as well. And it should be you and me, Doomcock. But I love those guys, so I'm kidding. But yes, I'm arrogant about the Prisoner. RMB, as much as I know my Trek, I wouldn't take him on Trek. On the Prisoner, I would take him on. And on the comics, I would take him on. But the man on movies and Trek, no way. He's invincible. He's
an all-around guy. He in his geek cred is good all the way around. But on comic books, I would crush him like a grape.
Oh yeah, you would. No question about you would. I know you would. You would. I would. On Trek, I could hang with anybody, but I'd be afraid of him. Well, the thing is, even though he and I are probably around the same age, he probably doesn't have the kind of horrible memory problems that I do, that I'm getting now. I am, RR, good buddy RR has popped in. All right, a lot of great new friends are popping in. Great to see you, sir. But RMB, yeah, but when it comes to Trek, and I'm sure I've watched it as much as he has, but he retains information like a beast. So he would destroy me. But I know I'd get him. Not that he would care, but you would destroy him on comics. I would. I know I could hang with him or beat him on The Prisoner and Doctor Who, which I don't think he watches Doctor Who. So. But anyway, again, it's not a contest, but it's a fun geek thing to go, oh, yeah, man, I'll challenge you on that, buddy. On movies, not a chance. He would just annihilate anybody. He's insane with his knowledge of film. He's really great. Of course, he made Free Enterprise, which I love, and that's that. You watch that and you go, man, these guys love them some movies. They know them some movies.
It was my litmus test for girlfriends to make them watch Free Enterprise and say, "You sure you want to do this?"
Yeah, and I hope they look like Aubrey England. Oh,
I did. I have no complaints, sir. I have no complaints.
No, good. But anytime I ran into an Aubrey England, it usually wasn't at a comic shop, although now you can, but it was a time, And it's a great scene in the Free Enterprise when he goes, well, I'm a girl. Oh, great scene. Great movie. Now,
I have a confession.
Jobber, you're here. But go ahead. Go ahead, man. I just want to say a lot of Jobber there. Good buddy. Go ahead, man.
I have a confession. Until... I'm 47. And until about 10 years ago, I was not a fan of Jack Kirby.
That's okay. There's nothing wrong with being there late. You're not the only one, dude. I've heard it a lot.
It took me actually working on trying to an education in storytelling and what makes comic book art an art form, and it's not the artwork itself. It is the storytelling. It's the ability to tell its story panel to panel, page to page. That's the art form. The ability to draw is just a necessity. So, and it also took the knowledge that the man was doing 7 books a month. Yes. And that what you had is what you're looking at is not a Neil Adams. He's not a cartoonist. He's not. I don't even look at. He called himself a cartoonist. I don't even know if in the traditional sense I would call him a cartoonist. I would call him an impressionist. And because he came up with a shorthand language for him to be able to work that fast. But in doing so, the amount of power and action that he put on the page was just incredible. There's a great hour-long documentary on him. Yes, that was on the extended cut of the original FF movie, the Tim Story one, and it's on YouTube if you want to check it out. It's called Jack Kirby Storyteller, and if you're not a fan, going into the documentary an hour later, you will be a fan. I promise.
I always was, but let me again, as you know, since I ran all these comic shops and owned one and stuff, that I met every kind of fan or non-fan there was, and I had people all day long who would say, "Yeah, I don't really like that old kind of man, that what they would call sort of a strange or boxy or bulky style or whatever," but they still at least had the proper respect for him and what he did. So I was like, yeah, okay. Personally, it's always appealed. I always look well. When I say always, his Golden Age stuff wasn't quite as refined. In particular, his Silver Age and Bronze Age stuff. But I've always loved it. But I understand it's not for everyone, and that no one's art is for everyone, for the most part. So, but I love it. To me, Kirby's is my all-time favorite, not just because he's Kirby. I mean, everything about him. He's my all-time favorite. But I love a lot of the greats, and they're so different. He's a cartoonist definitely in the sense that he's, like you said, storyteller, which is kind of what a sort of cartoonist kind of is. He makes, for example, you might make the case that Hal Foster really wasn't a cartoonist, or Alex Raymond. Brilliant artist, fantastic, and I love him. They don't use what was it? Scott McCloud's pretentiousness, juxtapose pictorial images and deliver in sequence.
Well, especially in the case of Hal Foster, because he was so known for that one. I think his dailies for a while there, and I could be wrong. Somebody can correct me, but that there were one panel stories in many cases, and it was just a cool image with prose almost.
So it was Alex Raymond, except he had a little bit more panels, but they weren't really panels per se. Yeah,
true. Those guys were so early on trying to invent a language that I don't think anybody realized was a language and thought about actually putting down the mechanics to it until you get to somebody like, say, Will Eisner. And he said he did it out of necessity because he wasn't in comic books per se. He was in magazines, and they gave him 8 pages. And he had to be efficient. So he had to really work out how to tell the story as efficiently as possible. It's because he only had 8 pages. So
absolutely. And in speaking of Jack, this is at this time when this comic book came out that we're going to be talking about tonight, gentlemen. Yes, we are going to get to it. Fantastic Four number 48. Man, they're 2 of the biggest firsts in comic book history of all of comics, because as we know, and as anyone here knows who knows anything about comics knows, that this era of comics and what Marvel did in the 60s, if it didn't save the medium, I mean, who knows what it would have been without what was done by Kirby and Lee and Ditko and all these people. And they were at the height of their popularity. This is issue 48, so it's a number of years down into it. But they were just, in my opinion, just starting to hit their stride art-wise on the Fantastic Four. And now if you look back, because a lot of people get accused, when you talk about old Silver Age comic books, a lot of people get accused of, well, you're looking at it through rose-colored nostalgic glasses. There are things that do hold up. Because, we all have things in our life that we may have loved when we were a kid that don't necessarily, I'm going to use the term hold up in big quotations. We still love them. We have a love for them. But if you look at them through an honest modern-day eye, there are things that fall apart. That's true of a lot of things. And then there are things that still stand up. I mean, and when it comes to these comics, if there's one thing that all the elements that make this era great, this Silver Age era great, this Silver Age of the Silver Age, if you will, it's right in this prime time of the Silver Age, for me is, look at all the layers to Marvel at this point. The things that hold up are these, in my opinion. The Kirby art, which got better and better and better. If you look at his early FF and his early other stuff like that, it was pretty, I don't know what an art's kind of, it was pretty rough. Let's just say like that. And times went on, his art was refined. And of course, eventually when Joe Sinnott arrived, man, it just really took off, as did art on the other books for the FF. I mean, for Marvel. So 1, the art. More importantly, perhaps 2, the ideas and concepts. They're just as brilliant today. They hold up in terms of imagination, all of it. And of course, number 3, or it could be number 1. Again, you put them in any order you want. The characters. And it's a no-brainer that all the characters, because they're all still alive today in some form, some way. And they, of course, have netted all the different owners of Marvel Comics over the years, billions upon billions of dollars, including on the movie screen. So the character, solid. Is there anything... and of course, the stories are still the story now. When I say the story, I'm talking about the actual plots. Outlandish as they may be, also hold up to a bit of a lesser degree than those things. The only thing that does not is the scripting.
Stan's prose. Yep.
Stan's
It's very of its time.
Very of its time. Yeah. So, and the reason why I say this, I'm not going to drag up the whole Lee versus Kirby argument that I have a lot and have studied a lot and have I have a lot of problems with Stan Lee, but I'm not going to beat up on Stan today. I do it enough. Chaba could tell you that. I do it enough on the show. Not here to do that. I'm simply saying a lot of times when you try to make the case that Stan tries to take too much credit and Lee or Ditko or Kirby or Ditko, whomever's got the shaft, and they did from Martin Goodman and Lee, in my opinion. It's an opinion, just an opinion. When they say, they almost always jump onto the defensive because Stan Lee is Santa Claus to a lot of these people, and they go, well, they start insulting Kirby. Well, and they'll say Kirby couldn't write. One of the things they say is Kirby wasn't a good writer. His dialogue wasn't really that much better than Stan's, but it wasn't that far off from it either. His dialogue was never really that good. Ideas-wise, though, I think it's proof that a lot of the greater ideas that come from those early Marvel comics, Kirby took a lot of them with him when he left them, and he put them into the Fourth World things. Ideas now, again, not necessarily scripting, because neither of them were great at scripting. So it shows to me that the super creative power behind all of it, not discounting Stan's contributions with sales or any of that kind of stuff, is Kirby, not just art. He was treated a lot of times like a guy who just drew things, not true. So these books are just as wonderful as they ever were. If you read them now, you just got to run past the prose and say, look, it was 1966. I forget exactly what it was, 66, 67. It was right up in there. But Kirby was the power, the intellect, the imagination behind it all. And a lot of this story, which I'm going to get into in a minute, it'll tell you. I mean, this was one of the biggest examples of how much this book is Kirby, this particular saga, even in particular, most of it's Kirby. That's just the way it is.
There's so much Kirby in here. Even Stan has over the years said, I can't take credit for this. This is Jack.
Oh yeah, he's had two different stories on it. Stan Lee has backtracked a couple of times. There's the old Fire Sign paperback reprints. Way to go, Paulie! Get those subs up, man. I'm glad you're doing that, brother. Where Stan Lee talks about how he created the Silver Surfer and sprung it on Jack and said, hey, let's see old Jackson draw this one. And then every other story he's told after that was how Jack created the Silver Surfer and popped him in there, and he was like, who's this guy? So
there is Stan Lee, the writer, and the mid-level management. And then there's Stan Lee, the face of Marvel, the huckster, and very much a huckster. I mean, I think he would have been just as good at selling used cars as anybody.
He'd been best. Are you kidding me?
But in the case of this duo, I think Barry Windsor Smith said it best. It's Lennon McCartney. You can't really. I mean, for as great as Jack is and Jack was, there is indelible an ingredient that Stan is putting in that's making the difference, because Jack had been trying this for 10 years and everything was a bust. And it wasn't until he hooks up with Stan that everything, and not just a little bit, it all stuck. It's like, let me throw something at the wall and see what sticks. Everything stuck. Everything. So you got to tell yourself there's an ingredient in there that Stan's putting in that's making it work, whether it be in the outside of the book as a promoter or within the book, just with the alliteration or his connection to the reader. There's something that he's doing right. But I would say, I would say this is definitely probably we're 85% Kirby and about 15%.
Yeah. Well, if you in that documentary that you had mentioned earlier, Barry Windsor Smith is talking about not just this story, he's talking about a bunch of different things that Kirby did, and he flat out, he's not subtle about it. He says I forget, it's been so long, I forget exactly what he was talking about, but I know he finished with saying, if you think Stan Lee could have done that, you're just wrong. I mean, he was talking about how much of the heavy lifting Kirby did. That when it goes, did you ever read the Marvel Comics, The True Story, or The Untold Story? It is, rather.
I haven't had a chance to.
Interesting book.
There's about 3 or 4 books that I'm on comics that are still on my list to read.
That's one of them. I recommend that one. That's incredible. But and that tells you a lot. But at this point, Latino Slant, by the way, Paulie, I'm just gonna call you Paulie, man, if it's all right with you, brother. Paul, even though I'll call you by your show name. That might be better, man. It gets the name out there of the show. So I forgot about it. I didn't think about that. He said that's his dad's favorite era of heroes. Well, me too, man. And he's reading Justice now, as we talked about last week, and he's up to book 3. I'm glad you're enjoying it, man. Great. You're gonna have to let me know what you think about it when you get it done. At this point, Stan Lee, for those, again, a lot of this is there's a great book that was basically an issue of Jack Kirby, the Jack Kirby Collector, but it was called Lee Kirby, The Wonder Years. And Marvel Comics, The Untold Story, both tell a lot of in-depth details about what was going on around the time when this story came out, The Coming of Galactus. Basically, Stan was almost never at the office. Stan was dealing with all of the outside business, whether it was getting the gantry. I don't remember something gantry. What was those cartoons made, doing public appearances at college campi, going all over the world, giving speeches and all this other kind of. Stan was rarely there, and a lot of the things they called us. Some of you may or may not have heard. There's something called the Marvel Method, which is basically the way comic books were created for Marvel. And I agree with that, Eastland. They needed each other to make it work. They did need each other a lot, but one of the things that aggravates me is how there have been plenty of times when Stan would answer a question when someone asked him, "What did you think? What were you thinking when you created so and so?" And he just answer like, "Well," and he'd give an answer, and he would not even mention Jack, or in rare cases, Ditko, whatever. And that really used to aggravate the hell out of me. I don't like it, and it pissed me off. Not just because I met Jack and I love him and all that stuff. If I'd met Jack and he was the nastiest person ever to me, I still wouldn't like it because it wouldn't be fair. But at this point, the Marvel Method was developed years before this, but it was basically, this is similar, and this is again, I was not there. You always got to, just like in that book, you always take certain things with a grain of salt. The great books, the Stuff Said by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, also a great one about Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Sorry, by T. Morrows. Thinking of a Justice League villain. It would kind of go like this. It got to a point where they would talk on the phone when they weren't in the offices. When they would just talk on the phone, and they would come up with the plot for the next issue of whatever. Let's say FF, right? Well, what are we going to do this weekend, this month in FF, Jack? Well, what do you want to do, Stan? Jack was kind of a laid-back guy. How about we have Dr. Doom? And they'll just name. They would bounce things off of each other, whether it was going to be Dr. Doom, whether it was going to be the Frightful Four, the Hate Monger, whatever it was going to be, Super Skrull. They would basically decide upon a villain or something along those lines. And they would talk for maybe an hour, maybe less. They would talk for sometimes very short periods of time. And the next thing Stan would, Stan would know is he would get, 20-something pages in front of him. Well, if you and I have a 10-minute conversation, we basically talk about skeletal plot, and I tell you, because you're an artist, and I tell you a few things, ideas I have, bounce them off of you for a story that are, fairly vague, but there's some nuggets are there, and then you turn in 20 pages, and you call me crazy at just me now. I'm going to say, yeah, you did most of the work there. I mean, I've had a suggestion or two. You wrote the goddamn thing. I'm sorry, you wrote it. You created it. Did I contribute? Sure. But then, of course, and Jack used to write the things out, and he used to have words along the paragraph, outside of the balloons, outside of the boxes and different things like that. Written, he had the things fairly scripted, but definitely plotted. I mean, he wrote these things out. He had them plotted. They were drawn. And Stan did used to add dialogue. Sometimes he would erase some suggested dialogue by Jack. Most of the time he would. And he would add his own. And he would call that writing. Okay. But then there were times when he didn't even do a lot of that. And on this story, he was very busy at the time. And the conversation was something along the lines of, how about the Fantastic Four fight God? But I mean, basically, and I'm not sure whether that was Stan or Jack, by the way. But they talked about it, and I do know that Stan has said on many occasions when he got the first issue back, or it was issue number 48, The Coming of Galactus. If you see that cover there, I guess it's okay to have the cover there. We won't get in trouble for that, will we? Who cares? I'm pretty sure we will.
You should be okay. No, you should be okay.
So Stan's like, well, who the hell's this guy? Who's this dude on the surfboard?
And Stan's response was, well, I figure somebody as important as God comes to Earth to destroy it. He needs a herald
Jack?
To go before him.
You mean Jack?
Yeah, Jack.
Yeah. Right. You figure a guy like Galactus would have someone doing his footwork for him. Yeah. You're right. And he said herald. So also when he based some of it, again, this is the kind of thing you can only get away with in the 60s. Is it really goofy that this omnipotent being would create a guy with a freaking surfboard? Yeah. And so, I mean, let's just be honest. Who cares?
John Romita Sr. has actually said, if I had created the idea of the Silver Surfer and come up just off of a whim, the idea of a guy traveling through space on a surfboard, I would have dismissed it immediately and said that's the most ridiculous thing ever. And it's like, not only did Jack come up with it, not only did he decide to go with it, but he made it work in a way that only Jack could do.
Yeah, he did. It's ridiculous. Yeah, but at that time, you could be ridiculous in a comic book, and it wasn't a sin. It was just if not just kids, because there were a lot of kids and older kids and younger adults. Anyone buying it, look, if they got wrapped up in the art and the story, they didn't give a shit. No one, because yes, you would think on the face of it that character would be laughed out of the room, and you wouldn't see him again. Not the case. Now, again, we don't learn a lot about him in his first 3 issues that much. We learn, later he keeps popping back up in FF. Later, he gets his own series. Of course, he's one of the most. And there's the thing, like ours says, people just love the Silver Surfer. No one cares that he's riding a surfboard. You just love him, and a lot of it has to do with his tragedy. His redemption story that starts in this saga. There's just so many. That's, of course, probably the biggest first in this story, but there's so many great things in it. Galactus is introduced, and for those who aren't familiar with the story, basically to set it up, issue 48 is kind of weird because back then, I'm not sure who did who was doing this, whether it was Jack or Stan, or like a concerted effort. But these comics were very serialized. Because half of the previous story, which was the story of the Inhumans, the very first Inhuman story, was almost half of this comic is finishing off that story. Not half, but close. So they were finishing off the tail end of the first Inhuman saga, where Atalan was, of course, covered, where Maximus covers it with the spear, the negative zone. They actually called it the negative zone, not the negative barrier. And separated Johnny from Crystal and all that stuff. And then halfway through the book, when they go back to New York in their big old gigantic jet plane land at the airport, because for some reason they didn't have the Pogo plane in the FF yet, or they weren't using it. I don't know. They didn't use a Fantastic Car. They used an actual 747 to go to Atalan. I don't know why.
I think they had just bought it off of Mr. Quest about a week ago. Yeah, from off of Mr. Quest. The way Jack draws the plane looks a lot like Johnny Quest's plane.
Yes. So they got their big old plane. They land at the airport. They go back and they find out that wow, somehow
the sky's on fire. The sky is on fire.
Yep, sky's on fire. That's definitely true. The Inhuman Saga was great. Love it. At this point, Joe Sinnott had been inking the book for a while, so it just looks about. This is, in my opinion, right around the time the pinnacle, the best the series ever looked for a long, long stretch of time. This is when it started looking just its best for me, in my opinion. The FF, Kirby and Ditko, they're seeing it, and it started around here.
Well, think about this. Within about 20 issues, you had the the Inhumans, first Inhuman story. Then you have the Coming of Galactus and the beginning of the Silver Surfer, and then you move to that into this new character, the Black Panther. All of this.
Yep.
And they wonder why it was called the world's greatest comic magazine.
Oh, exactly. It was, man. It's just incredible. And of course, in between those two, you had This Man, This Monster.
Yes.
After that, you go right into Doctor Doom. You get one of my favorite issues, FF55, where it was just a silly slugfest between Ben and the Surfer. But I sort of digress there. Doctor Quest. You call him Dr. Quest, doll. Yeah, good one. And yes, we get the reference, Claudius Parrish, Minimus. So this issue, again, it's weird because it's sort of a half. You've got the ending of the Inhumans story, and then it just jumps right into the Coming of Galactus. And again, a lot of things, I don't know, the Watcher really wasn't the kind of guy to follow his own rules, was he?
Not at all. Not at all.
He supposedly, just says hell with it.
Supposedly has a etiquette or edict of non-interference that he has to follow. He is simply there to observe, but he has become so fascinated with humanity and planet Earth that even though he can't directly get involved, he gives nudges, shall we say.
Man, he's running the show, dude. He is just, he's like the Doctor.
He's pulling a lot of strings.
Yeah, he's Doctor Who in this one. I mean, he's flat running around, he tries to argue with Galactus at one point. Something that was later kind of conveniently swept under the rug of retcon. He talks to Galactus and says, before all the planets you've eaten or you've absorbed, were lifeless planets, but this one has intelligent life, which doesn't ring true because later they just said to hell. I mean, remember the Skrulls were scared shitless of them. The Skrulls saw him coming first and blacked out their galaxy to hide from him. But so they knew that Galactus was the devourer of worlds, and Galactus never gave a crap about. But this was, of course, early on. This was his first appearance. They kind of just swept that under the rug a little bit.
Well, and they kept with this for a little while because, I mean, that's basically the origin of the Surfer and why the Surfer was created. Because you have Norrin Radd. I mean, once you get into the Surfer series with Stan Lee and Buscema, you have Norrin Radd who basically confronts Galactus as his homeworld's about to get eaten and basically gets a sign of compassion out of Galactus. And in doing so says, yeah, I'll spare your world, but if you want me to eat worlds that aren't teeming with life, then you're going to have to go find them for me because I'm not doing it. I'm going to eat whatever I want to eat. So if you want me to eat healthy, then you're going to have to go get my food for me.
Yeah, but they kind of later scrapped it because, remember they took Surfers and didn't even remember who he was at first. So
and the Galactus Galactus in the Skrull homeworld, and good God, how many times has Galactus been back to Earth? And it's like this gorgeous, beautiful aged piece of New York strip over there or filet that you just can't turn down because it smells so tasty.
He loves him some Earth. He's got taste for Earth there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man. So it kind of goes. We basically get all the fun of some of my most. I think some of my favorite scenes in an FF comic are in this one. Like when Johnny's being attacked by all the people on the street, and Ben goes down and deals with the one big dude, and basically, boom, thumps him with one finger and knocks him out. That's always a classic scene.
There's actually a panel in the comic book. It would have been on page 10, where you get a crowd shot of this, and it's kind of a medium shot, but you see a lot of people within the city and a lot of the buildings within the city, and the sky is on fire. And it takes up half the page, but it's just an incredible. It's definitely Kirby. Let me put it to you that way. But I love the panel. I think it's one of anytime he could do crowd shots like that and really put a lot of detail in and kind of give you a sense of of an area, not just the action of what's going on, but could actually do an establishing shot. It really winds up being something special.
Yep. Oh yeah. It's just it's truly amazing. It's some of the finest. Again, some of my favorite work by them. Now, of course, I was by Kirby and Sinnott. When I was going back to rereading this, this is an unrelated gripe at frickin' Marvel. I pulled out my Masterworks. I have that big gigantic. By the way, there's a gigantic ass edition called the Behold Galactus with a big Alex Ross cover, which I'm sure you have. That I recommend anyone if you just want to read some Galactic stories. If you don't mind getting a hernia, because it's what is it, like 3 feet tall or something crazy?
It's as big as most of the artist editions, and it had to have been a mistake, because I remember seeing it and not realizing, what is that? And it was like, oh, it's various works from Marvel that include Fantastic Four, including Galactus. So there's the original Coming of Galactus story from Lee and Kirby. There's some stuff in there from Byrne, and a couple of stuff in there from Buscema. And I'm like, oh, wow, cool. And I said, what's the price tag on this? Something like that. And yeah, it was $50. And you're just like, that's got to be a mistake, but I'm taking it.
Go ahead.
They came out with another Jack Kirby Fantastic Four volume that's just as big, and they corrected the problem. That one now sits at $100, and I haven't picked that one up yet, but I really want to.
Oh my! Well, this one's amazing. And again, you've all heard of a coffee table book? No, this is a coffee table without legs. It's that big, and I love it. It's beautiful, but
it's about 2.5 feet, but I don't know if it's 2.5 feet, but it's about 2 feet by a foot. It's big, and
it's bigger than artist editions. But
well, not really. You got to remember that Jack was working on what they call twice up. They weren't working on normal comic book pages.
But I've had it next to my artist edition.
Which artist editions are you looking at? You looking at Steranko and Will Eisner? Or are you looking at modern ones?
Thing. All I got is the Kirby, one of the Kirby FFs and one of the Kirby Thor. But I'll anyway, it's big. Let's just say it's huge. But one of my things about I sidetracked myself by accident when I was going in. But I decided just to pick up what was closest. My Masterworks from way back, the one I love those old. I love the old Masterworks with the dust jacket with the gold little the gold liner around the, you know what I'm talking about, on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I picked that up, and I remember, and it reminded me how pissed off it was when I bought this Masterworks back in the 90s or whatever. It's Marvel Masterworks number 25. It has that reprint in it. The jackasses colored Galactus originally in his original appearance. He was a totally different, his uniform was a different color, and he had shorts. Hey, it was hot, and it was New York. He had short pants and short sleeves. Well, in this Masterworks, they colored friggin' pants and sleeves on him.
I've seen it both ways. Yeah, I've got the recently released. They're doing these volumes called the Epic Collections, and they put maybe about 15 issues together.
Yeah,
and this is volume 3, and it actually ends with this man, this monster, and the artwork in here, the colors are corrected back to the original. So that last panel of Galactus has him being green, red, and maroon.
Right, green, red, maroon, yeah, and with wearing shorts, right? Shorts.
No, he's got pants. He's got pants in the first issue. He's got shorts and everything. But when you get into issue 49, and then they go to the maroon and kind of purple. From that point on, he's short sleeves and I would say he's got more of a tunic, and he's not wearing pants at all.
Okay.
Or shorts. You know, it's just kind of that dress, that skirt looking thing that he's got coming down from his belt that covers, you know, about mid thigh, but everything else down there's skin. But
I just didn't like him messing with it. But you know, I mean, it looks better. Don't get me wrong; it's a better design. It still's like, yeah, you know, but dude, you're still screwing around with it. You colored it, you mess with it. But anyway, not just a minor thing. It's great rereading it again though, and it's this story. Again, like as with anytime you go back and you read like the first of anything, like if it's an early first season episode of a show like Star Trek or whatever like that, or it's early comics, there are always things that, you know, if there's anything that lasted for any length of time that were later kind of messed around with and just different things swept under the rug, or different things just, you don't want to say retcon so much, but just altered here and there, and they just kind of nudge, nudge. Just that didn't happen. And they kind of do some things like that. Like I said, the thing about Galactus, Watcher telling them, you never consumed planets with people on them before. Why are you starting now? And that kind of stuff. And the Watcher being such a busybody. Because there was a later series. Remember the one with Byrne, Wolfman and Byrne did it when they were aging, or Reed, Sood, and Ben were aging, and they fought Galactus. And that one, the Watcher's interference was a bit less brazen.
I don't think Byrne was on the book then. I think he did a quick story. He did a quick story, but I think that he did with Sinnott actually inking him, and then he was gone for a few issues, and that's when I think the Galactus story happened. And then he didn't come back. Then he didn't come back until El Diablo. I don't think that was him.
Byrne did a run in the early after issue 200. I forgot the two odds or two tins, and it was the one where they went and they went and got the Sphinx was about to destroy the Earth. They were finished. It was Wolfman finishing all of his unfinished stories for Nova, and they went and in order to stop the Sphinx, Reed and the FF and the new champions all went out to get Galactus, to trick Galactus into helping them and fight Sphinx. That was Byrne and Sinnott.
Okay.
Byrne did the series before his his writer and artist series. He actually did the series for a while with Sinnott inking him, but he had different writers.
But yeah, I was aware of that, but I didn't think this particular story was his. There's a gap in there between issues where there was a story, because I know the one you're talking about, because that awesome cover of them in the jet where it's red and it's dome shaped and everyone's looking all shocked and scared. It's one of my favorite covers ever that Sinnott inked, and they're out in the Arctic, and then but then there's a period of about, I don't know, maybe 7-8 issues, maybe 5, where Byrne has nothing to do with the book and then comes back in. He's gone for a bit and then comes back.
Yeah, well, you talk about like the Doug Minch and Bill Sienkiewicz stuff.
Might be.
But before that, Byrne did it. He did that one Galactus story. They had one with a Simonson cover where they're all really old on it. But it was
okay. Yeah. I know the one you're talking about. I know the cover.
Yeah, it was basically Wolfman finishing up all of his loose ends from the Nova series. But anyway, so that was cool stuff. And again, I was just pointing out as the Watcher was a little bit more sneaky, underhanded with the way he kind of got involved in that one, and later he did. But neither here nor there. It was this is again a pretty straightforward adventure. Notable mainly just for introducing at that time. I mean, look at this concept. This is issue number 48. They've fought Doctor Doom many times, and Super Skrull, and they've been the Frightful Four. They've met the Inhumans. All these things that happened, and it got really tough. How are you going to top it? And what are you going to do? And this, after Galactus, I think it became a challenge for Kirby and Lee to, man, where are you going to go from here? And of course, what you got more Doom stuff. You got Galactus back a couple of times here and there, but that's a pretty high bar. And some of the stuff going on where they're fighting Galactus, like when Ben goes and starts trying to mess with his equipment to try to stall him, and so they can send Johnny to Journey for the Ultimate Nullifier. Yeah. You do wonder, like, man, I guess all the other heroes are just out; they're busy or something.
I have a question. Because I've gone through and I don't remember seeing them, but I could be wrong. Is 49 the first time that we see, or is it 48? 48, the first time that we see Kirby experiment with using photo collage in the book?
It's in there. No, is it his first collage? I think it is, but I would be lying to you if I knew 100% for sure. Minimus might know. Could ask him. I really do want to say it was the first time he did it. But I know it had to be an FF. Are you talking about 48 or 49?
Oh, it's 48. It's right as because it's supposedly his ship.
48, right? Yeah,
above New York. Yeah, it's like the second to last page.
Second to last page. I'm looking at it now again, and well, Venomous, if he's hearing us, he could probably tell us for sure. But I want to say it is, but I couldn't swear to it. But it was definitely an FF comic, even though he, of course, did them in Thor and and many other books later. And usually, he really used to do them in these big 2 spreads too.
Oh, Steranko relied on him heavily too when he came around.
Oh my God, yeah, I love the Kirby collage. I got one as a screen on my phone right now.
Yeah, it's in this 48. It's important to note that the reason why the sky was on fire and later the sky is just filled with asteroids and meteors and rock is because the Watcher knows Galactus is coming. He has seen the Surfer and is trying to hide Earth from the Surfer so that it won't catch his eye. And unfortunately, the Surfer is just too good at what he does and sees the Earth anyway.
Yes. Yeah, you know what? Again, you know how I was talking a little while ago about how certain things change and they add here and there in terms of, well, just different things they add to a legend. One case of that is, well, we both know that the Silver Surfer's one pretty powerful dude, right?
Mm.
And yet in this comic, and it was necessary for the story, basically Ben sucker punches him and knocks him so far, it knocks him away. Then and he just, of course, very conveniently knocks him right to Alicia's skyrise apartment or whatever, and he's knocked out, unconscious, and he falls through her skylight. Just it happens to be Alicia, and he's, in other words, in later comics, he slugs it out with the Hulk and Thor, and Ben can pop him around a little bit, but he can't make him lose consciousness. Again, I don't know why Ben was able to knock him out like that, except for story. And again, he wasn't established yet, because in later stories you would see like Ben would punch him and he would come right back, and he was trying not to hurt him. In a later battle that happened in issue number 55, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So again, one of those little tweaks, not complaining, just noting it,
Yeah. Bob was once in a conversation with John Byrne online and asked him, just how strong is such and such, and strong as the story requires him to be.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's like, well, who would win a fight between so and so and so and so? And he says, depends on who the writer wants to win. It's like, okay, yeah, it makes all the sense in the world there.
Yeah. Well, again, and that's always been a geek ass pet peeve for me, because like if I don't care what it was, when I would see a hero being inconsistent, their powers being inconsistently used, like in one issue or something, they easily could take out so and so. Another issue, so and so kick their ass and knock them out. That kind of stuff always geeks me out. But again, it's just just me. And again, it's not a big problem. It's nothing horrible. Just saying,
If you would like, for anybody out there that's listening that would like to know what the man on the street's perspective is to the Coming of Galactus, I would recommend, we talked about it on the Justice podcast last week, but go and read Marvels. In fact, there's a guy in the crowd, that scene that I was telling you about. There's a guy in the crowd in one of these shots that you would swear is the photographer. And
Phil Sheldon,
yeah, and he almost appears in one of the panels, it looks like. And I know it's just coincidence, because Ross has admitted that Sheldon and even Norm McKay from Kingdom Come are based on designs that is his father. But I don't know if that's kismet or what have you, but it was just kind of interesting to notice.
Yep. For those who are wondering what Galactus looked like originally, there you go. There, as you can see, he was, except this gives him pants. This is the only difference. This is the color scheme, though.
My understanding was he was very fun around the holidays.
Yeah. He was, this was Christmas Galactus. Except this version at least has pants, but I don't know what the deal is. Just a picture I found that has an idea of what the colors look like. So
that's the one from the that's in the Epic collection.
Oh, okay, there you go. I like those Epic collections. Pretty epic-y. They're pretty epic-y.
Well, I originally had the first two Lee Kirby omnibuses, and that went up to I think like issue 60, and then we've had this discussion before. 2016 happens, lost them both, and now fortunately I've been able to slowly get, because I mean, who doesn't? If you don't have all 102 issues that Lee and Kirby did in your comic collection, even in reprint form, I don't know if you can really call yourself a fan, comic fan. I don't know if you can.
Probably not. We might find you and hurt you.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, break your legs.
We might come after you. Damn it. Do as we say.
Break your legs so that you have to sit down and can't do anything but read. And the only thing will allow you to read are those 102 issues.
You gatekeeper, you.
Now, what surprises me about the dialogue here when we get into 59 is you start finding out. And this is something that's I never kind of realized until I went back and reread this, and don't think I picked up on it the first time, which is the energy that Galactus is taking isn't from the core of the planet itself, as we've kind of known. That's kind of morphed over the years. It's from the water. It's the energy that's created by the water.
Yeah, that's right. Suck the damn oceans dry.
Yeah, yep. And then of course it would just be a lifeless husk without water, and that's how he would destroy the planet. But that's a concept very much onto this book, and I don't think that's stuck around at all after this. I mean, it becomes, he was feeding on the actual, almost like the impression I've always gotten is that he's feeding off of whatever's within the core of the planet. And that is not the case here. I was really kind of like, oh, wow, that's something interesting. I'll have to make note of that, because I never quite realized that's what it was about.
Yeah. Well, no, that's true. And it is. Well, again, like you say, though, things develop and evolve and change and stuff. And incidentally, we're not going to dock you any points, but just in case you want to see what a Kirby collage looks like, and this is the one from number 48 right here. There you go. A Kirby collage, maybe the first. I don't know. We're not sure. No one saying for sure there. But good God, I love them.
We'll get to another one before we end the show.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Where were we? Oh, there's a delay there.
Yeah, we also have the first ever appearance of the Punisher.
That's right. I'm glad you mentioned. If you hadn't, I would have. It's funny. People are going to go, "What do you mean the Punisher?" Well, I should have got a picture of him. I'll probably go get a picture of him. Yeah, I'm going to get a picture of him. What the hell? Yes. So for those who do not know, we're not gonna jerk your chain too much, but Jack Kirby and Stan Lee did do the first comic with a comic book character called the Punisher in Fantastic Four number 49. True story. And if you'd like to see a picture, I'm going to find one. I should have got one earlier. When I was rereading it earlier, I thought about that. I just forgot to get one.
Page 14 of 49.
Let's see. But he's here somewhere.
But he's quite the little frog character, and blue-faced, and very, very Kirby. Very, very Kirby created character there. He's almost like reminds me from Captain America Sleeper a little bit.
Yep. He looks just like Frank Castle. Yeah, he doesn't look like Frank Castle. He looks like a little midget frog thingy that, for a minion of Galactus. And again, Galactus didn't have a lot of minions later. He's just he's not even, Galactus didn't even create him. He just joined up with him or something. And this guy,
it's like, this is the Punisher's like, okay, you guys are causing me some trouble. I'm trying to get my machine together here so I can kill your planet. Let me, but I've got a little, I don't know, it's my little pet toad, and I'll bring him out here. It's like having a rabid cat, and you want to get rid of the rat, and get rid of the mice in your house. And
yes, and Galactus, at least in this story, it's sort of intimated that he's not really used to any kind of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess that's why. I mean, he doesn't really understand things attacking him. They're like pleased to him, and no one ever attacks him and fights back. And it shows here. So he's got this little thing, and like, well, you're not going to really, you're going to need some bigger guns if you're going to take out the FF. Again, and I hate to go all over the place, but again, everyone, you do wonder where all the other superheroes were, but that's every comic book ever made. Because when you are a super geek, especially as a kid, when you read, whether let's say you're reading FF, you're reading Avengers, you're reading Spider-Man, you're reading whatever, and it's some kind of really big time threat attacking New York, as they always do. You always go, why don't the other superheroes come help them out? And you just go, shut up, they're doing something else again. They're not in this book.
Those kind of stories didn't really kind of pop up until you get into the Bronze Age, and honestly, it comes to the difference between writing a pre-established universe and creating a universe. And because if you're as creative as Kirby is, you're just coming up with new ideas right, left, and you don't really have the space or time to include a lot of crossover material. I mean, it did happen some. I mean, when we start the Inhuman story, I believe. Matt Murdock's in it for a little bit, but for the most part, there's not a whole lot of crossover because they're too busy creating. It's not until you get into, like I said, the Bronze Age where you start getting heroes constantly in other people's books. Byrne did it quite a bit within his FF run. When he had Galactus, he had everybody in there taking Galactus down. It was not uncommon to find other characters in other people's books. The question became, can you do it organically? And during that period, I thought they did a pretty good job all the way up through the 80s. And then once you start getting into the Image crew in the late 80s, I thought it started to not work as well because it was more about, hey, look how pretty my drawing is and not how organic the story feels. But here it's they're too busy making stuff up, and like I said, 20 issues. It's just nothing but creation after creation after creation after creation, and it didn't stop. And we're just like, wow, this is just, I don't know where does this fountain of information or thought and imagination come from?
Yeah, oh yeah, it's just amazing, dude. But yeah, by the way, everyone, that's what Frank Castle was originally going to look like, right? Just kidding. But that's the first Punisher in comics. Unless someone knows of another one I don't know about, which could happen. I don't know. Now, aside to this a little bit, because I've always thought it was fascinating, those of you, I'm sure you've all heard of What If? Who hasn't? If anybody here should know about that. There was a very interesting and I thought very good issue of What If, called basically asking the question. It was a giant size What If special, I believe, and I think I have a picture of it somewhere. What if the Avengers had fought Galactus? Did you ever read that one?
No, I never. Never got into the What If books, and it's interesting because now anytime I pick up a modern Marvel book, I feel like I'm reading a What If story.
Yeah, that's true. I highly recommend if you stumble across it cheap somewhere. I remember really enjoying it. It basically, of course, on this particular What If Earth, the FF didn't. I think they may actually died in the crash or something. I forgot exactly. I mean, whatever it is, but there's no FF, but there's the Avengers, and we're not talking about that book right now for standard one, so I won't spoil it for you if you want to pick it up. But I found it to be a very interesting read, and I thought Jim Valentino wrote it. He actually wrote some pretty good FFs.
Valentino is more. I don't know. He was the old staple in comic books before the whole Image thing ever came about. Yeah, especially in the indie scene. He was very much into the indie scene, doing work for Renegade Press and Warp Graphics and stuff like that. Normal Man, and I think he did some Mr. Monster. I think he might have done some of the Robert Asprin Myth Adventure comics. I mean, he was all over the place.
Yeah, well, he wrote a handful of What Ifs, and they were all really good. Did you ever get his book, A Touch of Silver, by the way? Really good.
I got the first 2 issues, and it was like somebody was trying to capture. This is what it's like when you're a kid to read comic books. This is and play on your nostalgia of being a kid enjoying comics. That was nice, but it wasn't one I stuck with.
No, but it was pretty fun. In fact, I had the trade paperback and left it in the hotel room in Lake Vegas. I was after I bought it in the comic shop. Still mad at myself. I got to try to find it. But this was a pretty good comic. Pretty good. That what if anyone ever, I mean, people who are interested in the Coming of Galactus, if you do read the Coming of Galactus, try that what if out one of these days. You're able to pick it up. I thought it was pretty damn good. But as the story moves on here with the Coming of Galactus, we find out that going up against Galactus is pretty futile. I mean, you're just not going to take him down, and they have to learn this the hard way. Do the FF, and the Watcher's teaching him. So basically, now there's nothing for it, but to send. He will send Johnny. There's a cover, by the way, that Avengers book. They have to send Johnny. The Galactus wants Johnny to go and quest for the ultimate nullifier. And while that's going on, there still doesn't seem like much of a shot. But we've got the subplot of the Silver Surfer, who again, thanks to the great just boom smack of Ben Grimm, my boy Aunt Petunia's favorite nephew, knocked his ass right to where he needed to be, right on top of Alicia's skylight apartment or whatever, skyline. What do they call those things? Oh, whatever.
It's a skylight.
There you go. And he falls into there, and then she meets him and basically starts telling him that he seems very noble and talking to him about humans and human spirit and all this stuff. Things that are unknown to the, as we find out later, named Norin Rad. It's all been wiped. It's not humanity, his Zenla'ity or whatever. She's from Zenla. She stirs up a lot of those old emotions in him that he had forgotten.
Well, yeah, she feeds him. She makes him a sandwich.
Yes. It's like, why do you eat stuff? You could just turn it, and he could just convert it all into energy and shit. And but yeah, so Alicia really kind of saved all of us in a sense.
Yeah, she's really the hero of the story in many respects.
Yep.
Between her and Johnny, they really. It's funny because you always pretty much expect that it's going to be Reed and Ben. Between Reed's brain and Ben's brawn, that's going to wind up saving the day. And then in this case, it's the hothead and the blind woman.
Exactly. And again, that's one of the wonderful things about the FF. I mean, they are superheroes, and a writer who's a total dork, but I'm still going to use the term he came up with because it is kind of interesting. Imaginauts, he is.
Mm-hmm.
But they are also science-based, but they're still superheroes. But the thing is, they deal in science as well. And there's, the FF is very Star Trek in that regard, where not everything they're involved in is punch-outs with supervillains. It's about solving things from a technological standpoint and solving things scientifically, of course, because Reed Richards is so damn smart and stuff like that. And he eventually realizes we went over our head, we don't have a shot, and he realizes, yeah, we better. I don't know why he's doing it, but we better start listening to the Watcher because he's our only chance.
I'll give you one better. I've never looked at the FF as a superhero comic book. I've never seen it that way. I've always seen it as a science fiction comic book where they play in the world of superheroes. They're adventurers. To me, this is Johnny Quest. This is almost Indiana Jones, but science-based instead of complete action-based. It's and like you said, very much has a science fiction adventure feel to it, along the lines of Star Trek. The superhero aspect of it's almost incidental to me. And I think the book is at its best when it is that case, when they really start delving into being quote unquote superheroes. That's when the book kind of devolves for me, because at that point it's still entertaining superhero stuff. It's just not as smart. And that was the one thing I've always appreciated about the runs that I've enjoyed. And there are 3 runs that I've really, really enjoyed. Lee and Kirby obviously are the greatest 102 issues of comic books probably ever created. The Byrne run, the John Byrne run is up there. I would, I know there is a point at which they come back from Secret Wars where a lot of people didn't like the book as much, especially with Ben being gone. And I can appreciate that, but as a young reader who is in his quote unquote his own personal golden age of exploration of comics, it was still amazing for me. And then the third one, and God, it kills me to say his name and to give him praise, but it's the Mark Waid, Mike Marengo run. And at first it was the Mike Marengo artwork that kind of drew me in. But and there's some stuff in there that I like, and some stuff in there that not as much. But one thing that it was fun to read again. And I thought, as much as I enjoy the writing of Dwayne McDuffie, who I think had the book before him, I didn't think it was as much fun. And that's the same thing with the Hickman run is also very well touted, and it's it very much a science fiction, science-based book there. But there's not a lot of adventure in those books, and there's a lot of talking, and it's well written, but man, it just boring. It just bored me, and I know a lot of people love that run, but I am not one of them. I mean, Dale Iglisham's artwork is beautiful, but it was just kind of it's almost there, but not quite. It's like you got 2/3 of the equation and you're missing. You got the family, you got the science fiction part of it, but you have none of the adventure in here.
Agreed. Totally agree. But I did not. Again, I kept jumping off of FF when a certain creative team leaves, and they'll just get so bored with it or aggravated with it, and then when you do that, you're going to hear from everyone. If someone comes on that's really popular, in that case, the Hickman run was just so lauded and so popular that I couldn't escape it. Yeah. You gotta go read the Hickman run. Oh, do I have to really? I mean, I got to. Like it's illegal if I don't or something. No, yeah. Come telling you'll like it. Give it a chance. A couple years in, I go, all right. So I did, and again, everything you just said covers it for me. I mean, couldn't get into it. Like the artist, I like the artist, but it's just, I don't know, man. It's just, is it as bad as what Dan Slott horrible garbage is now? No, but I did not couldn't get into it, man. Gave it a shot, and hey, a lot of people like it, and that's cool. And again, I don't hate it like I do this current Slott filth, but. Yeah, not my bag either. As I say, not my bag, baby. Now, anyone who wants to get an idea of what we were talking about earlier, of what Galactus, how Galactus dressed before. Okay, I'm going to show it to you here because, you didn't do anything to deserve this, but what the hell? This is Galactus in the summertime, baby.
That's actually a recolor.
Yeah, but that's the way he looked, though. With the shorts.
Well, it's
colored, but not the arms.
Yeah,
that's not as great as comics.
That's not even the same color as the original comics, though, because the original comics there was more of a purple mask, and the trim was purple, closer to purple was more, I guess, a violet, and the parts in here that are purple were more of a maroon. So that right there is a recolor. That's very close to what it's almost the opposite of what he is today.
Yeah, but I'm just showing this because it shows how he was wearing shorts and sleeves and stuff. It's a totally different color. In fact, I don't know where this might be from. Maybe like one of the reprint books, Marvel's Greatest Comics or something.
Has to be.
Yeah. Let's see what Jobber's got me going here. He said, I bet Mike had a heart attack when he saw the first season of the lousy first season of the 90s cartoon handling Galactus. The whole first season was horrible to the point where I got a couple episodes in and said, this is a piece of filth. That's why I was shocked by how wonderful the second season was.
I'd rather go back and watch Herbie the Robot.
Me too. It was terrible. But that's why I was so shocked by that wonderful second season. I probably told you this once before, Jobber. I was working at a job on a Saturday morning downtown working security in a building, and I get a call from a friend of mine. Said, "Are you watching the Fantastic Four cartoon?" I said, "That sucks, man. Shut up. What are you calling me for?" No, you need to see it. I was like, "Suck it, man." So I get home at night, and he brings the friggin' he recorded it, brings the tape over. He said, "You've got to see this." I said, "Fuck you. I don't want to watch this thing," but he made me. And like, oh my God. And I just missed the one before, which was the first of the season, which was the Daredevil, and I had to get that later. But it was the Inhuman Saga. that they did, which was so wonderful. And oh man, I was hooked, and I love it now. It's one of there are a few things in this world that no matter what my mood is, that can bring me out of it, that bring me sheer joy in life. There are a few cartoons that manage it. That's one of them. That few measly little 12 episodes, if you don't count the 13th one that was I'll count it anyway, even though it was a Clips episode with the Impossible Man. Still got good stuff in it. So I love that thing to death.
Disney Plus.
I have the set, and the good thing is, the first season just makes a good coaster, and it's got a great feature. You can turn Stanley's stupid mouth off. You don't have to listen to him pontificate. So,
but if you don't want to, if you can't find the disc, I believe that particular series is on Disney Plus. What'd you think of the anime? The anime one that came out in the late 2000s.
I tried to give that a little shot. I didn't like it, man. I couldn't get into it. I realized it not just because of the type of art. It wasn't my bag, but people like it, and I just don't. I don't know about you, but I couldn't get into it. You liked it?
I wasn't a fan of a lot of the designs, but I thought there was a flavor there that I appreciated. And some of the episodes I loved, some of the episodes not so much. It was episode to episode. Yeah. They were never able to do, though. They canceled the show before they were able to get to the Coming of Galactus, which was really a bummer. But there's like I said, their version of the Incredible Hulk is not my favorite. But the episode where Banner comes to visit and you actually get the a scrap between Ben and the Hulk, the Thing and the Hulk was it was a highlight for sure. There's some good stuff there. There's also some stuff you're just like, man, why couldn't you just make it look like it's supposed to look? But I've never seen a version of the Fantastic Four that, I guess the 60s cartoon is about as close as they ever got, but it's never seen a version that just completely captures the Fantastic Four perfectly.
For me, that second season of that 90s did. It was perfect. To me, yes, it melded a few things, but to me, it was perfect. Like, they even took some Byrne stuff in there, but I didn't mind. Again, it was so Kirby-ish. Yeah, I love it, man. I love the Hulk thing episode. That's my favorite one.
What's funny, if we get back into looking at the book, is it the Watcher sends Johnny off on a side trip for the ultimate nullifier?
That is right.
Or the ultimate whiz-bang gizmo that will fix everything plot device?
Yes, the MacGuffin.
Yes. The McMuffin?
The McGuffin, yeah. Exactly. But yes, you
from a Mahler episode.
Oh, Mahler, yeah.
Yeah, well, somebody
Mahler,
had missed.
Yeah.
And and then finally the Galactus is like, okay, no dice, I'm out. You get your wish. But
it's fairly cut and dry. There wasn't a whole lot to this run in with Galactus, because again, he hadn't really been. He wasn't. It was his introduction, but it wasn't as really. Didn't take him long to deal with him in this one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still transformative. Go ahead.
See, 20. Trying to get how many pages the story actually is, because it takes place over 3 issues, but there's only 9 pages of it in the first issue.
That's right.
And there's only 13 pages of it in this issue, and so I think the middle one is 20 pages. So yes. It's only like 40 something pages of this stuff, 42 pages. And it's not. It's short. It's really short, but there's so much in here that it's meaty. It's a meaty 42 pages. It's really kind of surprising that you could pack this much in a comic book. And I only say that because I see how everything is written today, and they got so much inside of it, which was essentially 2 issues. That it's pretty crazy. They do it here, and it continued on for several years. But again, I think I mentioned it last week, where you had overlapping stories, so you were constantly on the hook. You constantly had to know what was going to happen the next issue. They never let you out of the cycle, so you had to keep being a regular reader. They weren't writing for the trade. You was like, I got to know what happens next every issue. You never could get away from it, and it was awesome.
And that's another reason why Marvel was a trendsetter, because comics generally were not doing that before. And they were, well, again, then, because DC kind of controlled their distribution at that point, DC is national, and Marvel was only allowed to print on a handful of 12 comics or whatever it was. Yeah. They were able to take all kind of chances. They took a lot of chances, and that was one of them. They were like, well, we're gonna, because distribution. It wasn't like there was a comic shop where you could have a folder, So distribution being what it was, you weren't always guaranteed to get the next issue, but they said to hell with it. They figured, you take the chance and you bait the hook, and people are going to want to come back. Readers are going to want to come back, and they did. So
they'll go seek it out. It was like, if distribution being what it is, if you really want it, you'll go find it. And
if you can, that's right.
Yeah,
you will. Oh, yeah. But these were great at that. Yeah, it was a Baller had the term McMuffins for all McGuffins of the ride. Yeah, that's right. The ride's Palpatine or Skywalker. Yeah, Palpatine more like it. Yeah, you're right, buddy. Yes, indeed. Paulie would like a McGuffin with cheese and bacon, please. So would I. I just had some Popeye's chicken that doesn't agree with me now. I wish I'd have just had a McGuffin instead.
You can now get a chicken McGriddle, and it's a little bit like eating chicken and waffles if you kind of feeling soul foodish.
Chicken waffles, yeah, I'll take that all day long, man. So I'm looking at this cover of issue number 50. One of the things, like you were just talking about, just as with issue 48, which had all that stuff with the Inhumans, and then the second half of it starts out Galactus, all of 49 is Galactus, and then the last would you say it was half and half of 50 that dealt with the story? Very basic. We really run through it pretty simply because it was very simple. Johnny goes into just a wonderfully, beautifully drawn bit. Wow, the art's amazing. When he goes questing for the ultimate nullifier, and once Galactus says, well, to hell with you damn humans, if you're going to be like that about it, you don't want to be eaten, screw you, and leaves. Harump, it takes his toys and runs away. After that, the issue kind of just meanders off into Johnny goes to college. He meets Wyatt Wingfoot, his first appearance. I always liked Wyatt Wingfoot.
I did too. I thought Byrne probably used him better than anybody did.
Yeah, good old. I mean, he was cool. And again, he kind of disappeared for a long time, but yeah, that was cool to see him there. That was a cool first appearance. And after that, it even sort of the villain, if you will, of the following issue, number 51, was shown in there. Mm-hmm. And basically also see before Galactus leaves, he says, you know what, Silver Surfer, you like this planet Earth so much, buddy. Keep it, bitch. Boom, blasts him. And of course, as we know, it would make the Silver Surfer trapped on Earth, a barrier he may not penetrate. He must live amongst puny humans, for a long time. A long, long, long time. And he can't get through the damn thing. Which I thought was interesting. Again, an interesting concept, which many, many years later would serve him well in his own series.
I would be curious, and I don't know the timeline as to whether or not the Heinlein book, Stranger in a Strange Land, if that had come out yet.
I think it had.
Because the premise is very much that.
Good point. That is actually interesting. I think it had, though. I'm fairly sure, but I could, again, I don't trust my memory anymore. In fact, I have what I call dangerous memory. There are times I'm really scared of my memory is going to get me killed. Like I'll forget to do something important, like breathe or whatever. So I don't know, but I think it did. And think about Silver Surfer. We touched on cartoons a little bit. A slight aside again. I'm sure you've watched the late 90s one season wonder Silver Surfer cartoon. Did you ever see that?
It is a guilty pleasure of mine. I love that cartoon.
I really do. The only thing you got to kind of do in your head a little bit is you kind of have to forgive it for not having the FF in the pilot, which kind of aggravates the origin a bit. But if you can get by that, it's wonderful. I mean, I love people have kind of criticized it for the use of partial CGI, mixing it with 2D animation. I think it was beautiful. I think it was perfect. I love it. I love everything about it.
It could be a little jarring at times, but for what they were attempting to do, I thought it worked. And furthermore, they really worked hard to try to capture as much Kirby, try to get that balance between Kirby and Buscema as best as possible. I was really impressed that they worked as hard as they did to try to make that show look as good as it did.
God, that wonderful music. Oh, I like that. I like that Galactus you sent, brother. Cool. That's great. Yes. That wonderful somber theme music.
Mm.
And by the way, the background music is wonderful too, as well. The incidental.
I believe that show is also on Disney Plus.
It is, yeah. I've heard that. I have a bootleg of it. Of course, it's never been put out on legal DVD, at least not around here.
No, they did overseas, not here.
Oh, okay. Well, I have a decent boot, maybe taken from that. And every now and then I watch it. I probably watched it again recently because it's been a couple of years now. I love it. I love the whole somberness of it. The guy who did it talked. I forget his name, Larry Brody, I think. He's talked about how he really wanted to, do it longer. But there's a site. I don't know where it is now, but there was a site out there where you can find some, at least not full descriptions, but they talk about how the FF was going to be in season 2. The series ended like some series in the world, on a horrible cliffhanger that really left you hanging. It was written by it was an episode written by Harlan Ellison. I'm not sure if that was it or not. They had an issue with Adam Warlock, similar, kind of a little bit different. They had Beta Ray Bill.
Mm.
God, it was great. Oh my goodness.
No, I thought they did a great job on that one. That's definitely a standout. I would say of all of the Marvel comics, because everyone loved the X-Men, everyone loved Spider-Man show. I was not a fan of either. Then there was the Iron Man one, which was probably the worst of the bunch. And then there was the Hulk, the Fantastic Four, and the Silver Surfer. And I thought the Silver Surfer was light years beyond the rest of them. I really did. Like I said, I enjoy, if I want to watch the Fantastic Four, I can watch pretty much all of them. I can watch that second season, but it's not a favorite of mine. The Incredible Hulk, it's never been put out in the United States on DVD, but the 1982 Incredible Hulk show that was around for Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, and Spider-Man's Amazing Friends, that Incredible Hulk show was probably my favorite of just about anything of the Incredible Hulk that's ever been put on television.
That's the one where his clothes grow back when he turns back into Bruce Banner.
Yep. And Michael Bell, who does the voice for Duke and G.I. Joe, and I can't remember the woman's name who does Scarlet, do Bruce Banner and Betty Ross.
Oh, okay. Been a while since I've seen that. You know what's? It wasn't so much the great story. They did have the Hulk cartoon of the late 90s. They did have one with the Thing on it, and him and She-Hulk were actually on an episode. I think wasn't like Doctor Strange and Thor, Ghost Rider, a couple of them it. But you know what was great about it? The opening credits and music were fantastic. It was like
it was the 80s cartoon.
Yeah. But there's something about this one that had an amazing. I mean, I like the old one too. Don't get me wrong, but and I like the music to the old cartoon too. But I mean, I really did love the opening credits and music to the better than the show itself, which was okay, to the late 90s Hulk cartoon, because something about it, man, it just it sort of like did an interesting microcosm of the whole Hulk history, like in a couple of seconds there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. What's that? I have a single disc of the Hulk cartoon that came out as a time with some Marvel film. I'm not sure which Hulk. That's Claude. I'm not sure which Hulk cartoon he refers to. It's the old one or the new or the later one.
It's a single disc. It came out it's a 90s Hulk. It came out when the Ang Lee movie was released.
The 90s? Okay.
Yeah, because when in the early 2000s, when the first two Spider-Man movies came out, they released the 90s Spider-Man on single disc. When Daredevil came out, they released a Spider-Man disc that had Daredevil in it. Yeah. And when the Hulk came out, they released some of that. So yeah, they were mining that as promo material for the films when they were coming out in the early 2000s.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Got you there. Yeah, great stuff. Fun stuff. And so basically, this was very simple to wrap up because it was to go through, because this Coming of Galactus story was pretty simple. It didn't really again, it wasn't a lot to it that much, but again, a lot of comics were easier to sum up from back then anyway. But issue 51 would of course go on to be This Man, This Monster, and it is a classic. It is probably. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
what surprised me most about 51 is just how, if I talk to my girlfriend the way Reed talks to his wife, I would wake up with her standing over me with a knife in one hand and my genitals in the other. Because he talks to her, he's like, out of my way, woman. And it's like he's got a secret project and says, how did you find out about this? And it's like, really? You
all
keeping
through that
secrets
era
from your wife? Oh, yeah. It's just like, oh, my God.
He talked to Sue like shit forever back then. He really did. I mean, listen, if we're being honest, you're right. I used to, and I don't mean to laugh at it, at sexism and everything, but when I read those comics, even I, who cannot stand SJWs and don't like all the PC shit, even I will read an old Stanley dialogue FF comic and go, holy shit, dude. I mean, even I'm cringing here, and I don't give a shit about that kind of stuff that much. I mean, as long as it's a certain context, but it's still wrong is wrong. And good God, man. And again, people put up, well, you know, I guess maybe a lot of women weren't reading comics at that point. I don't know. I mean, they weren't really, I guess. A lot of college kids were and a lot of young kids.
Yeah, but there's some stuff in there that's pretty rough.
Oh, geez. All throughout his run on it. And then again, if you want to blame, Jack. I mean, you know, Jack was there. Jack put up with it, but ultimately, you blame Stan for what appears on that page. He was the boss. So
that's it.
Yeah, sorry, Stan. I love you and everything, and you know, but man.
Not only that, but Stan always claimed the dialogue. That was his. So.
Yep. So there you go, Stan. You sexist pig. May you rest in peace. Difference is, you know, I'm kind of ribbing you, Stan. He got called that by a bunch of idiots before he died. And I want to make clear we're not doing that. We're just kind of joking about the dialogue here. Yeah, but you aren't kidding, dude. Oh shit.
Yeah. So yeah, we run into this one starts off with the thing in the rain, and he runs into our kind of Cro-Magnon man scientist, but we don't know that yet. He's just trying. It looks like being a good Samaritan, getting old Blue Eyes out of the rain, and give him a cup of coffee and have a seat, bitch. Just chill out, and you no need to go out back in that pouring weather.
Exactly. Yeah. I will say, of course, again, this is my all-time favorite issue of single issue of FF, story and art-wise, just all together. I'm proud to say my copy of this I had signed by the great Jack Kirby himself on the inside front page. The only other thing I was able to get signed by him, other than the original art that we bought from him when we met him in Dallas, was the Jack Kirby Treasury #1. So, but the Jack Kirby, that was the Jack Kirby Treasury. It was a sort of an art book of his. It was done way back in the 80s. But anyway, this monster, great cover. Just for those who are not familiar with the story, again, it's pretty simple. In the previous issue, Ben, and again, look, it's kind of silly sitcom shit in a sense. Or was it Siskel and Ebert used to call it the idiot plot? Someone would say something, someone else would hear it, jump to the wrong conclusion, and your whole story's based on it. Silver Surfer has just helped save the world. Alicia's just thankful, obviously, because the world has been saved. She's being nice to him, and he's all flowery in the way he talks. And Ben goes, he talks like a poet. Basically, I knew I can't even be mad at Surfer. I can't blame her, for her wanting him over me. Well, she never said anything like that. Ben jumped to the conclusion that she was, falling just now in love with the Surfer. She'd thrown him over to fall for the Surfer. And he was just going to run off and cry about it. But it's my all-time favorite comic book character. And I'm like, well, that's just kind of drama they need to make. That's fine. As a kid, you just accept it. But when you think about it, you're like, come on, man. Jesus Christ, Ben, you have rocks for skin, buddy. Come on. And, you didn't even give her a chance. But what the hell? It led to one of my favorite comic books. So fucking...
Today, they just put Ben on Wellbutrin.
Oh, shit. Yes, indeed, it is a fantastic cover, and it's just wonderful. But this story, is what counts. Dialogue, again, we talked about this at the beginning of the show tonight. You can look at Stan Lee's dialogue and really you gotta cringe and laugh at it, especially in even earlier years than this. Oh man, I was rereading some the old Ditko Spideys and different things like that. It wasn't everything he did. And I'm cringing my ass off going, the only thing that does not hold up is the dialogue, the arts, the ideas, all the other stuff's wonderful. So this gentleman who pops up in issue 49 at the end, mysterious fellow, he takes Ben in out of the rain and befriends him and talking, and it seems like a really super nice guy or anything, and manages to drug him. He drugged him, right? I think he drugged him.
Slipped him a Mickey in his coffee.
There you go. And I guess that affects Ben and his rocky metabolism. Fine. Guy's a scientist.
Well, it just knocks him out, and then he's a scientist and pulls out the machine that basically I don't know, transfers over the DNA of his rocky metabolism from Ben Grimm to himself, and because he's got a very Cro-Magnon style brow, he's like, this should work out excellent.
Yeah. So yes, and he basically steals Ben's gig. He steals his powers and his body and all that kind of stuff.
Well, so, he's jealous of he's a scientist, but he's jealous of Reed Richards and feels that Reed's nothing but a glory hog, and isn't deserving of being called the smartest man in the world, and he's going to show Reed just how smart he is. He's going to take over his best friend.
A classic morality tale of envy and such. This guy's envious of Reed Richards and thinks he's like you just said, you laid it out perfectly. He's a big glory hound jerk. I love this. This is again one of the great. I had him sign right on there. This is one of the greatest splash pages of all comics to me. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. It's right up there with all time favorite splash pages, or for those who don't know, the first page of the opening page of a comic book. My goodness, man, it's a thing of beauty. I love it. Yes, pun intended. So this gentleman leaves Ben and goes, takes his guys and goes to the Baxter building. Ben, of course, later wakes up and is like, I'm Ben Grimm again. Cool. I don't know why, but cool, man. And he's but then he realized, that dude took, he took my thing. He says, I better go warn the others. Incidentally, the fake Ben is at the Baxter building, and he's hanging. He's obviously plotting to, I guess, to kill Reed, right?
I don't know. They don't really say. It's just gonna make life miserable for him. And it was almost like like a expedition to gather information this time around. And Reed's putting together hopefully a weapon that will keep cosmic threats like Galactus from ever coming back, and because there's always a chance, and in this new space age we must have adequate defenses against any attack. I think you know more than you're telling me. You've had work crews all week building new machines, especially that one in the the locked lead-lined room. How did you find out? It's like she lives there, dude. It's your wife, really?
Yeah. Yep. It's crazy, but it's he decides. Let's see, Ben is. He decides. I don't know. He just. I think he does want to off Reed, though, I believe, and they. Let's see. Reed goes out.
Reed is also making another device, and asks for Ben's help. The device is so that Reed can travel, since Galactus and the Surfer and everybody and the Watcher can basically bounce around the cosmos within a blink. It's like, I'm here, now I'm here. It's just force of will. I can be on any planet I want at any time I want. All I have to do is think about it, and there I am. So Reed is looking to create a device that's going to give him basically the same ability by going through subspace, which honestly, I don't know if it's ever really talked about or called it, but is this the beginning of the negative zone?
I think this is probably the first time we've seen the negative zone.
Yeah, it's not called the negative zone, but that's where we're at. And and we get on page 3 this absolutely splash page of this absolutely beautiful piece of Jack Kirby machinery, like only Jack can draw. You guys have this. You guys have this issue, and you want to see Jack Kirby at his finest in building machines that absolutely have no possible way of existing in the real world, but look great on the page. This is it.
Oh man, I can never get enough of Kirby machines. It's just they're just amazing, and it's in the meantime as the plot thickens. Ben is worried, about the team, so he goes. He goes back to the back of the building dressed as obviously, he's Ben, and they basically, for some reason, I mean, who would look? I guess they think he's an imposter for some reason, not because again, it's fun silliness because you're like, wait a minute. He looks like Ben Grimm. You guys knew him forever. And
well, yeah, but you got to figure it's got to be a lot easier to fake a Ben Grimm with a human lookalike than it would be than the Thing. Especially when the Thing is like, it's showing that he's still super strong and has the powers of the Thing.
But for me, Ben's, I know, but Reed's a scientist. So, yeah. But anyway, it works for the story. It's fine. I'm joking around. It's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just laughing at it a little bit. But so he can't convince him. They all think he's an imposter. And he basically runs off and says, well, screw you then, you guys. You can go ahead and let this guy do whatever he wants. I'll just leave and go meet Alicia and live my life normal, and to hell with you.
Yeah, you see, whatever befalls you, you earned.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that, as they say. And he leaves, and they just start working on this project of Reed going out into this zone, whatever you want to call it. I can't remember what they call it now. I don't have it in front of me right now. I seem to have misplaced my Masterworks with it, and I have so many different versions of it somewhere, but it doesn't matter. We all know the story. It's a wonderful story, but it's wonderful obviously for the art, but also for a lot of the sentiments that come to play in this one. Basically, they go out into this thing, or Reed goes out into this thing, and he's got this cord that he's tethered to that Ben is supposed to pull him back in. It's a sign of danger or whatever. If I'm remembering this right, and again, I'm going to depend on your memory because, well, my memory.
Well, yeah. Well, first we get a couple pages of Johnny and Wyatt trying to adapt to college life, dealing with the college bully who's the quarterback on the football team, which that story doesn't even resolve in this issue. But then, we go back and it's this giant machine. Reed's walking in, and he is tethered, and Ben's supposed to pull him back, and or the Thing is, and because it's not Ben, and this man's like is already starting to see, wow, he's created this machine, he's going to do this amazing thing, and there's nobody around, there's no cameras, there's no money involved, he's not getting a cent for this, he's doing it because he feels it needs to be done. And so he's already starting to have second thoughts, but at the same time he's like, this is my chance. He's going to go into this subspace, and all I got to do is not pull him back, and then I can be rid of Reed Richards forever. And then so Reed goes in and activates the machine, and we get another good amazing Kirby collage.
Yep. I put a page up here. Look at this page of
that's it.
Crossroads of Infinity. God, I love that page. It's beautiful.
I always thought it'd be cool if they could do it as the Trio of Yggdrasil and do the 9 realms, but that's just me.
There you go. Good idea.
So anyway, there's some really amazing. There's the next page over. There's a close up of Reed's face as everything, he's screaming out for Ben, and everything is going wrong. That's just some pretty amazing artwork by Jack, and the colors are great too. But then the thing, the guy who's disguised as a thing, and not only that, with Sue there saying, pull him back, eventually has a change of heart and decides he's going to do it, but it's too late. And the tether snaps. So now that this the scientist as the thing has developed a bit of a conscience on the situation, he goes in after Reed. And now they're both in this this subspace negative zone realm and discover that there is an Earth inside of there. But as everything is opposite as far as positive and negative, and so now the Earth is basically acting as a magnet towards anything that's considered mass within this realm. But as it hits the atmosphere, it burns up and explodes. And so this is Reed's fate. Unless and now also this fake thing's fate as they get closer and closer to this negative Earth.
Yep. And well, he starts to realize just how wrong he is about Reed Richards, like you said. And in the good old tradition of the comic book thought balloon, he tells us exactly, how how wrong he was, and it's pretty powerful stuff.
That's the guy I spent years hating, being jealous of. I ain't even worth his little pinky, is what he says. And then he grabs Reed and gives him a fastball special, basically. And hurls them out of the negative zone back to the dimension barrier from which they both came through, and just picks him up and throws him until he's out of sight, almost like throwing a baseball as far as you can see it. And then rides the fake thing, rides the piece of matter that they're on all the way into the Earth as it explodes.
And well, or at least so we think. By the way, the power does switch back to, for some reason, Ben, who's on his way to Alicia. All of a sudden, we don't know why. I mean, they don't explain why, I should say. He transforms back into Alicia.
Into the thing.
To the thing. Go ahead.
If Ben Grimm turns into Alicia, that would be a whole different comic book.
That'd be a super scroll. Sorry. Yes, that would be something. That would be wrong. We wouldn't want that. That would be bad.
Maybe today's Marvel.
Well, today they would do it. Yeah, actually, who are we to judge? So, who wouldn't want to turn into Alicia? Now, I already pissed off at Byrne for that crap. But no, it was Englehart. Whoever did it. That scrap with the Ben and Johnny and Alicia garbage, and there should have to be a scroll. Remember?
I think that was after Byrne. At least the wedding was.
I think he started it and then Englehart took it over. But anyway, at any rate, by the way, earlier we were talking about the big old Kirby machine. We should let everybody see a Kirby machine because they are wonderful.
That's the one.
Yeah, I love that. Jesus Christ. Kirby machines, man. Kirby machines and Kirby squiggles. And Kirby crackles. Love them all. So, yeah, this guy sees the error of his ways. He saves Reed. But Reed, of course, and Reed and Sue think that's Ben. And he's gone. He's lost. And it was really touching, really sad thing. And all of a sudden, Ben just shows up. And that's kind of where the comic pretty much ends. Well, that's part of the story anyway. But
I was going to ask because there's probably about I've read the Lee Kirby stuff and then I've read the Byrne stuff, but it's been a long time since I've read a lot of this. This man comes back again, doesn't he?
Yes, but
he's not dead.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. Right. That's why I said we don't know he blows up in the. But I had it explained to me like many years ago because I didn't read it. I think it was in. Oh man, dude! I think it was in a Peter Parker comic or something. Mm-hmm. Good God, I could be wrong. Do not quote me on that. I will check with my source on it. And the reason I say I have You ever heard of the Marvel Comics or the Comics Vine or the Comics Database or any of those things?
Comic Vine, yeah, Marvel
I
Database.
have a living, breathing one called Carlos. My friend Carlos, who lives in Mexico, this mother frigger bastard who I've had on my show, I'm gonna have him on again. This is some bitch who could remember every single detail of a comic book he read in 1984. It doesn't matter what year it was. It doesn't matter what the comic was. He could tell you anything about it. I remember we were back in the 90s at some point, for some reason, we were talking about this story. And he said, "Did you know that guy came back?" And I said, "What? You mean the dude from the..." "No, he was dead." "No, he came back. Did you know that?" And he told me the whole thing, but since I'm not him and insane and can remember every goddamn thing, I don't remember the whole details of it now, other than the fact that I know that they brought him back. So, yeah, I'm going to find now. I wish I'd asked him before I did this. But then he could tell it all, too, man. He could tell you everything happened with the dude. It's scary stuff. So, yeah, I'll find out. But, yes, the gentleman who stole Ben's rocks, if you will, it did come back. I just don't remember the comic book. He told me what it was now. And I think it was in the 70s or 80s, though. Maybe the 80s. Got to be the 80s. Yeah. So, although it sounds like the kind of thing Peter David would do, so maybe it was him. Maybe it was in the 90s. I don't know for sure.
I don't either. I followed Spider-Man in the late 70s and into the early 80s, and there's a little bit around the Secret Wars 2 era when you had Web of Spider-Man really stunt and take off that I followed. But
yeah.
I dipped out before the Image guys took it over. Yeah. And it's nothing against, what they did. It just wasn't my bag. And, I don't cast shadows on anybody. It's like, oh no, I love the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man. It's like, oh, I'm good. I think it was interesting, but the way he drew him. But other than that, never could get into any of the stories. See,
that's why I never liked Venom. I never give a shit about Venom. Everyone loves him so much. I didn't like any of that era. I didn't think he was a great villain. Nothing against him, like you said. But I wasn't into that era of Marvel at all. In fact, I kind of gotten away from it. That was also when I was starting to break off from DC. So I was just getting mad at all of it. So yeah, some of that stuff. So you never know some of the eras, but again, that's what I have Carlos for. I'm going to get him on when every now and then we do a special show where we got to talk some Legion because we're big Legion freaks. And,
see, that's 86 is when, like I said, that's when Byrne went from Marvel to DC, and then I swapped. I went jump ship with him because why would I not want to read that Superman? And then, but in between that, I found you had Jim Starlin writing Batman, and then you had so Batman was starting over. You had George Perez writing Wonder Woman. You had Mike Grell doing Green Arrow. So as far as I was concerned, it was like, okay, well, DC's where I want to be, because this is at that point I was getting in Ground Zero and something totally. Tim Truman was doing Hawk World. DC was having, it was a fun place to be in the late 80s. And 86 was really kind of the dividing line. Yeah.
Well, that was right around, I don't know, at that time, my favorite things were, I was still reading a lot of DC. I was pretty much dumping Marvel left and right, but I was reading a lot at that time. That was a big renaissance for independent comics. And there were so many great, non-mainstream comics that I was loving at the time. Judge Dredd was just coming over here a lot because I was getting the Titan books, even some of the reprints. It was Judge Dredd. It was, things like that. Cerebus, Star Slayer. Well, that took forever. But Rocketeer when it came out. A lot of those books had tough schedules. Marvel Man / Miracle Man, which we need to do a show on one day. Of course, watch.
Never read them.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah, never read them. The Marvel Miracle Man stuff. Never read it.
Alan Moore's Miracle Man is one of the most brilliant things I've ever read in my life. Now, of course, as you do, I'm sure even if you haven't read it, you know that it started out he was Marvel Man over there. And then for over here purposes, they call him Miracle Man. So that's, oh my God, man, and it took forever back then, man. I tell you what, the only thing because it was a comic book renaissance in the 80s, as far as I'm concerned, creatively speaking, and entertainment wise, just and artistically. But Jesus Christ, some comics, the best ones, all the best ones, of course, usually took forever. Never kept good schedules. More Swamp Thing kind of did for a while there, but a lot of the better stuff, man, if it was a really top-notch book back then, and then, again, I was in my, my late teens and early 20s then, so, I wanted different, somewhat more challenging things. It's just kind of natural for that age. And, man, comics sure were that. They were really starting to hit off.
Yeah, in some respects, it's a medium you can do anything in, and I appreciate that aspect of the medium. However, there are certain things, like I said, I've mentioned before, that I think when it comes to Marvel and DC, if you want to do prestige formats books that are more adult oriented, I don't have a problem with that at all. But I completely disagree with after the 80s, when you had your Watchmen, you had your Dark Knight Returns hit, that which were both prestige format stuff, that and outside of continuity, that within continuity things started to get a lot more adult as well. And where I didn't have a problem with it for many years, as I've gotten older and as I've had a kid of my own, a son of my own, realized what a detriment it actually was of, because you were creating this culture of basically the fans who were our age, who are now becoming professionals within the industry, instead of doing what everybody else had done for the last 40 years, which was pay it forward to the next generation of, say, 10 to 20-year-olds. They were continuing on their own fandom by writing stories to their own age, and as they got older, the stories would get older, and so we wound up being lifelong comic book fans. But it became pretty inaccessible for an 8 to 10-year-old to pick up a book and say, "Oh wow, I think I might want to read this for the next 5 to 10 years."
Well, look, Moore knew it after a while. Miller never admitted it, but what those guys did, it's sort of, how basically one of the fundamental things you realize about life when you get older is that good things can come from bad things, and bad things can come from good things, and it is just the way it is. Something really fantastic could lead to something really terrible, and vice versa. It's just a weird thing in life. And those comics at the time when we were reading them, we didn't know we didn't at first know the ramifications. We just go, "Wow, Watchmen's brilliant." Dark Knight, which I have a lot. Actually, someone was pretty critical of Dark Knight, but it was still at the time it was pretty exciting. And these comics that ushered in this. What do you want to call it? This mature age and all that kind of stuff. We were like a lot of people that age. We didn't give a crap about kids. We were kids when we read comics, and we didn't think about wow. They sure thought of us kids when we were comics and we were accessible. Now they don't give a crap, but we don't care, do we? And at the time, as a comic shop owner, I did start to kind of think about that a little bit. But at least there was still some comics coming out that were kid friendly, and then there was your quote unquote mature readers comics. Watchmen, I was not going to sell to kids. Dark Knight, right. People were at least knew not to sell them to kids, and they still had some stuff for kids. Nevertheless, Alan Moore knew it. He said, I want, we deconstructed the superhero. We didn't mean for that to be forever. It was just what we're doing with Watchmen. But then you get Vertigo, and then you get all this other stuff. Many fine comics came out, but it didn't do more damage than it was worth.
In the short term, I don't think anyone noticed for about a decade. From about 86 to 96, I don't think anybody really realized it. And then I think we even still had probably about another 5 years where we get it right till we get to 9/11, where comics decided to grow up a whole lot and never turn back. And that's also 2002 is when Marvel decides to get rid of the Comics Code Authority, and DC follows suit within a year.
Yep.
And then things just got stupid after that. I mean, Marvel creates the Max line, and there's a War Machine book out there that's got nothing but it's completely black and white. It's got all kinds of cussing and nudity in it, and there's a Sergeant Fury book out there where
that Derek Robinson, and I love Derek, but that's not for kids. I mean, and it's not. It's a Max line, but then Marvel Knights line gets pretty bloody at that point as well, and yeah, they just never went back. And then little by little, it just started to creep into the main universes. I mean, DC wasn't complicit in it either. I was part of that too. I mean, I remember what was it, World War III, which is part of the New 52 countdown to New 52 before the 52 books were actually coming out. This was around Infinite Crisis, where you had Superboy punch Karate Kid's head off and turn it into mist. And then I can't remember who it was he grabbed, but Black Adam literally tears a dude in half, and blood all over the page.
Yeah,
but
horrible.
Then the Marvel over on their side's doing the Siege storyline, and Sentry grabs Ares, the god of war, by sticking his fingers into his skull and splits him in half. And blood and guts all over the page, and you're just like, and this is why does this have to be? I mean, it used to be you would see violence on the page, and it was usually done either stylistically or done off camera and left to the mind's eye, which was usually what you could think about was more horrific than actually showing it anyway.
Yes.
But oh, by the way, check your Twitter DM.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. By the way, I appreciate that. I'm so glad you're here. Hey, Richard Sullivan, my good old buddy, Almighty Sports Show. Great to see you there, my friend. I'm checking it now. You talking about the one you said earlier, the Galactus?
Yeah.
That is fantastic. You did that?
Yeah, I did that while we were sitting here doing the show.
No kidding. Good Lord. Should I show it to the gang or what?
Yeah, sure, if you want to.
Oh, okay, let's see if I can get it out there. You got to see this, fellas. This man, I hate him. He's an artist. I can't draw a stick figure. This man can do all kind of cool art. Good God, this is great stuff, man.
Thank you.
He is with our. He fits in with our subject matter tonight for sure. The big G, and I don't mean Godzilla.
Yeah, the main thing I've always looked at Galactus, and this was something that was kind of instilled in me in a conversation I had with Brian, was that there's been too many books that made Galactus out to be the villain, and Galactus is not a villain. Galactus does not care. Galactus just you don't care about the ants under your boot. You don't care if you're eating. Fly is flying around. You just swat him away while you're eating. He's barely within your notice, other than when he become a pest. And that's what Galactus is he doesn't.
True.
He is what he is, and he has to eat just like we have to eat. And the fact that what he has to eat happens to kill. Imagine how many we cooked food, how many microbes are on that piece of meat that we eat that die when we cook it. It's no different. It's very much the same thing. And we don't even think about, we don't care. But, but Galactus does not see us.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things about the character. Yeah, it's absolutely true there. I'm getting to I hate my damn computer.
If you can't put it up, it ain't a big deal.
Yeah, I'll find it. I got it. I think I saved it. Where you at? Damn it. Let's see. I know what I did wrong. Where you at, man? Well, I will find it, folks, because I want you to see it.
Did you read the Bleeding Fool article?
No, which one?
About the Whisper Network.
Oh yeah, with what they were talking about last night on Friday Night Tights.
A little bit on Friday Night Tights. Ethan really, EVS, Ethan Van Sciver, went into it 2 or 3 days ago, where he really goes through the article bit by bit. And Ethan's got kind of a unique perspective on it because he was basically run out of town by these cats, and whatever your thoughts are on his art style, whether you like it or whether you find his brand of humor to be a little abrasive, I think it's just a Yankee in him, really, that a lot of people don't like.
I like it, but it's what's up there. Yeah.
Well, I've got a very, very Yankee sensibility, so I get it. But he the man deserves to be able to put food on the table and continue on doing what he's doing as long as people want to buy the books that he draws. And basically, he's not been allowed to do that, not within DC, where he was at for 20 years. And then you find out that not only is there are a group of people who caused this, but not only was it coordinated for him, but it was coordinated that there's a group out there who are coordinating together and getting rid of anybody that they think is a problem. And it really comes down to it's a group of women that have gotten into comic books who are using their own sensibilities and what they believe feminism to be, to go out there and take down the men in the industry. And you either defy them and get canceled, or you seem to cower to them and hope to stick around long enough until they destroy the industry.
It's a damn shame. And the guy basically got blackballed, is what happened.
Yeah.
You know, there's no two ways about it. And it's just freaking disgusting.
But at $1,025,000,
he kind of showed him, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he gets the ultimate laugh here, because we've seen books go up to 700,000. We've seen them go up to 800,000. You know, I think the first I ever did close to 900,000, or a little over, if you take all the campaigns and put them together. But on one campaign to hit over $1 million on a single comic book, you're just like, jeez. You shake your head going, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of fucking money.
Unbelievable, man. And good. That's so cool, though. It really is. It's fucking fantastic that he's throwing it right back in their face for blackballing him because, he basically voted the way they don't like him to vote. That's basically what it all was. They don't like the way you vote, they're going to come after you.
Well, and I don't even think it's originally. I don't even think it was about him. I think it was about the fact that it wasn't her. I mean, because what you have here is a whisper network of a bunch of women, very, very feminist women, and we were looking to possibly have the first female president, and it didn't happen, and they just cannot abide. It's just, this has got to be, anybody that kept this from happening has to be destroyed.
Yep. It's sad, dude. It is very sad. I think I found a way to do it. Let's see here.
Did you know when they left office and GW came into the office, they stole the furniture? The Clintons stole the furniture out of the White House when they left off, when the bill left office. They also went to all the keyboards on the computers and moved the W's. Which that's actually kind of funny. I see the humor in that, but yeah, they stole the furniture and had to give it back.
That's true. Oh, there you go. Oh, I see what I'm doing wrong. I got the picture down. The only way I can show it is to do it like this.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah. There we go, everyone. Now you can see it. I do it a different way because something's wrong with my stupid ass computer. Well, what's wrong with my stupid ass computer is that I'm a stupid ass, by the way. Feminist. I can't pronounce the way you wrote it, Eastland. But that is remarkable, dude. Love it.
Well, thank you.
Man, everyone's seeing it too. It's cool. Isn't that nice? Excellent, man. I hate you, dude. I wish I could draw like that. If I could draw like that, I'd never leave the house. Yeah, I stole that from Eddie Murphy, but in a good way.
I made the joke to somebody. It's like, between the ability to draw, which is a very insulated, singular kind of hobby, the amount of physical media that I collect in film and in comic books. When this COVID thing hit, I was like, I was born for this.
Yep. Yes, indeed. Man, I don't know, dude. We got to think of some other comics to break down in the future when you have time. So I'll let you think on it though. We don't have to do it next time or whatever.
Well, I mean, I really want to, and this would have to be down the road because it's it's a heck of a read, but you got to get a copy of the Ankle. If you don't have it in your collection, it needs to be there.
Of what?
The Ankle, the Alejandro Jodorowsky and
okay.
Moebius. And I would be down for, it's another Marvel. This would be, but the Mark Waid, Ron Garney, Operation Rebirth, and Man Without a Country storylines, I think they're easy reads, and if they're probably the best I think Captain America has been since Kirby.
I think I did like that. You know, I actually like the Stern Burn Captain America run better, but I did like that as well. Which, you know, I love the Stern Burn one.
Yeah, that one was great, and I didn't even mind when it was Grunwald, and I think mostly Paul Neary, but there was also
Mike Zeck.
Matisse and Zach was doing it, and yeah, a few others have popped in, but
I gotta tell you, I was never a big Zeck guy. I mean, nothing against him, you know. Wasn't the biggest on him though. I think I kind of dropped out of that series at that point, but a lot of people thought it was pretty good though. Again, age and of course mileage does a lot to you. I think there's no way around it, because there are some artists that I could not stand when I was younger, and I guess because of this horrible stuff that they make now, when I see some of it, it just doesn't bother me as much. I mean, artists like, dude, I hated them, and now it's kind of nice to see it again. It's weird.
No, I've had the similar. I mean, I was never a huge fan of Jerry Ordway. I have more of an appreciation for him now than I did back in the day. I have a lot more appreciation for a lot of the independent artists from the early '80s that who had been in and out of Marvel, but it was, I mean, I didn't come across Howard Chaykin until American Flag, and which might be my favorite independent series I've ever read. And it's very critical of the Reagan administration, and I consider myself a conservative, but you're telling me a good story, and if you tell me a good story, then I can put the politics aside and just take it as a good story. And it was very interesting the way he decided to go about a police force. Not much different than what they want to do now.
Exactly. That was a book I had to put up on the top shelf when I was running the shop and not sell to kids. And it was one of the first ones that, man, all the older readers were going nuts over. I first didn't order enough on it, and then finally started ordering it pretty well. Alan Moore did a backup in a couple of them. I never was big on it. Chaykin had already kind of pissed me off. I hated his Black Hawk and his Shadow personally.
That was later. Later.
I know, but I just hated those. Especially, I think I hated his Black Hawk, but his American Flag, I don't know, man. I should go back and read those one day, because it's been a long time. I remember reading them when they first came out, not being big on it, but boy, it was a huge seller. All my friends were reading it and loving it. So,
well, like I said, if you were a Reagan conservative, you would definitely bristle at some of the stuff that's in there.
Yeah,
but
I did.
Because, but at the same time, if you can set aside that and then just look at it as a story, it's an entertaining story. And fascism can come from either side. It was conservative that gave us the Patriot Act, of which I would gladly go back and say no today.
A friend of mine worked for Chaykin, by the way.
Really?
Did all the art for him. Richard Ory was a friend of mine who I worked with and knew very well at BSI Comics in New Orleans. He went out and he did a lot. He almost did all of his background work for him. He had a sweatshop. Shakeman.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. I know you're talking about.
Yeah, good dude. Still out there somewhere. We still communicate on Facebook every once in a while. But he did a lot of the backgrounds for a lot of them. And I can't remember which one it was now. It may have been Black Hawk or something, or one of them where he put Carl. He would always put something about BSI or Carl Tupper, Carl's name in the background and stuff like that. My dear departed friend Carl Tupper, the owner of BSI, and stuff like that. So of course he did the colors. I think he did the colors for Golden Age. Remember, by James Robertson and Paul Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
yeah, I was gonna say he was mainly a colorist. I remember Chaikin was doing it was I was in the 90s. Marvel tried to reignite the Epic line, but they didn't do it in the fashion that Epic had been.
Yep.
But there was like a 3-part miniseries called Accident Man, and Chaikin did the covers to that, and I thought he did the colors on those. I don't know. I think he did. There was his name was on it somehow. I remember. I don't know if it was him or Steve O. If it was doing the colors on that. But yeah, no, Chaikin. I got into a conversation with Chaikin one time, and he was talking about who had trained him, and there's a lot of guys who learned a lot from Wallace Wood.
Oh yeah, love him.
If you talking to Chaikin, and I mentioned the name Wally Wood, and was corrected on the spot, you can call him Wallace Wood. You can call him Woody.
Don't call him Wally.
Don't call him Wally.
I love Wood inking. Not only inking Kirby on Sky Masters of the Space Force. Wow, God, I love Wally Wood. One of 2 legendary comics creators who sadly killed themselves.
Did he?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man.
I tell you what, for budding artists out there, look up 22 Panels That Always Work by Wallace Wood. And if that's not taped, pinned, or whatever to your drafting table somewhere, you are causing yourself a disservice. You can find it right on Google. It's there. And it's a necessity for anybody that draws comic books or wants to draw storytelling, because it's 22 panels, and it's like long shots, overhead shots, close up with somebody. I mean, he just lays it out, these 22 different types of panels. When you're stuck and you can't think of a way to draw it, you can look at what you've got on the page, and if you can find one on there that doesn't match, then you can go with one of those and then use that, and it'll always pull you out of a jam. And that's what it was there for. And it was pretty amazing to look and see that he was like, wow, you really came up with all this, and it really does work, because I've used it. I keep it with me all the time.
Well, I'll tell you, Wally Wood, in my opinion, we were looking at it a little while ago, Fantastic Four number 51, which is one of my own, in my opinion, is one of the greatest comic books of the Silver Age. Well, Wally Wood did one that's right up there in the Silver Age, is the greats for me, and that's of course Daredevil number 7. Mm-hmm. And that's just a masterpiece in my opinion. When of course Daredevil fights the Submariner. And of course, I love his Thunder Agents work. And I realize when you say Thunder Agents, you get crickets. No one's ever read any Thunder Agents at all, but I love them.
But everybody knows who the Thunder Agents are. Everybody knows, has heard of them.
Dude, a lot of people haven't now. Not anymore.
Yeah,
I bet you get crickets from most people now. Never heard of them. And do you know that it's public domain, right? You and I can do Thunder Agents comics right now.
Yeah. No, I think Jerry Ordway was doing them about 2 years ago.
Was he doing them for just himself, you mean? Because I know IDW did a series a few years ago. The rights they just don't belong to anybody, though. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's certain stories that you have to be you can't do. Yeah. But the characters.
Go ahead. Sorry.
The characters themselves are in public domain now. There's a lot. It's going to be interesting because let's see, we're 2020. I think it's in 8 years. The Superman from Action Comics #1 comes into public domain.
Yeah. Wow.
Actually, no. He was what, 36? Was it 36 or 38?
It was what, the comics?
Yeah, Action Comics #1. I keep forgetting.
38.
38. Yeah.
My dad was born. Yeah.
Yeah, because 90 years is where the benchmark is right now, and so 2028. Superman as he appeared in Action Comics #1, no boots, mind you, blew all the way down. But
yeah, and just yesterday was the what would have been the 106th birthday of Joe Shuster.
Yep,
Superman artist, co-creator. Yeah, so those dudes, man, they were something. We need to go to the Superman Museum, man. You'd love it. Oh, it's the best.
They haven't sent me out that way. If work ever takes me out that way, I'd be happy to go.
Yeah, it is incredible. I'd love to go again, man. Fantastic. But yeah, so yeah, oh, my goodness. Wally Wood was great. like you were mentioning him, and just no one talks about the old guys enough, or the old classics, or the old great artists in comic books enough anymore, and it just makes me sad. And so many of them are gone. This year we've lost. Was it 3 legends? Denny O'Neil, Joe Sinnott, and Mort Drucker.
Yeah.
Man, of all the greats out there now, from the Silver Age to the Gold, there's no Golden Agers left, I don't think. There are a couple silvers and a few bronze here and there, and man, it's just getting dimmer and dimmer.
Yeah, Al Plastino's still around. Chris Neal, Plastino. He's on Facebook.
I got that book of his for like $7. I need to try to find him and get him to sign it. God almighty.
Yeah, we still have Neil, but Neil's in his 70s, almost pushing 80, I think.
We still got Mike Grell. You still got, Starlin and Barry Windsor Smith. People like that. But as far as again, we still have Ramita Senior.
Yes, true.
Well, at least I got to meet him. That's one good thing. But man, I never got to meet Kurt Swan. That kills me.
No, I never got to meet any of the
that. But
a lot of the guys from the Silver Age, their names to me. I've never. There was probably was it Irvin Novick? I got to meet.
Oh wow!
At at the Chicago Comic-Con, right as Wizard was taking it over. It was in the late '90s. It was like '97. Me and a buddy of mine that but I'll leave him out of the conversation here.
Plastino died 13, dude.
Oh, did he? Well, he's got a Facebook page.
Okay. And I didn't mean to interrupt you though, buddy. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no. I'm glad you corrected me. But anyway, Irvin Novick was there. It was like they had about an artist alley. They had one row that was dedicated to Golden Age and Silver Age artists. And it was really sad. I was happy to go over and talk to some of those guys because there was nobody. Everybody was there to see Todd McFarlane and Michael Turner and Rob Liefeld and what have you. I think who was big then? Alex Ross was there that year. Alan Davis was there that year. Alan Davis is a really cool guy. It was just kind of like there's nobody going to talk to these guys. These guys are, this is our legacy here, Yeah. And some of the stories they tell are a hell of a lot more interesting than what we get out of the modern guys because they're like, it's working from my house. I mailed it in. Nope, never even talked to the writer. Yeah. It's like, how you never talk to him? How is that possible?
Man, dude, there's so many times in the 90s where I wanted to go to that Heroes Con in South Carolina, I think it was, because they had so many people I wanted to go meet. And a buddy of mine went a couple of times, and I'm going to go one year with you. I'm going to go 1 year with you. I promise I'm going to go. And I didn't. And there's like some of the guys that I would love to have met that are no longer with us.
Now everyone's dead.
Yeah, but we still got, like, for example, Garcia Lopez is out there somewhere, and my God, I would love to meet him. I got at least, I know he does cons sometimes, I guess.
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about him. I know for a long time, Steranko wasn't doing cons, and he started doing them again. I got to see him back in January, thank goodness. But for a long time, Neil Adams wasn't doing cons, and he started doing them within the last 5 to 10 years.
Yes, he has. Seen him at a bunch lately, cons and stuff. So, and Grell's doing a lot of them now, and I saw Frank Brunner at Dragon Con one year. I didn't expect him to be there. That was a shocker, But again, that's a guy you don't hear the name much. Mike Plube, that'd be great. We'll never meet him.
No, he lives over in Europe.
Yeah, we'll never meet him more because he's insane.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys who were just they were never quote unquote big names. They were workhorses. They were guys who just came in and got the job done. Everybody knows Kirby and Steranko on Nick Fury, but does anybody remember that Frank Springer did work on that series too? And I like Frank Springer's work on that series.
And when I think Frank Springer, I just think kind of a generic Win Mortimer type of style that he did Dazzler or something like that. But he was old at that point. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're right. Frank Springer was pretty good, pretty competent.
Yeah, Springer actually. There was a period where like I said, I got into comic books back in early '83 was when I was in regularly. Like I was picking up monthly then. And it started with G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. And I want to say it was late teens, early 20s in issue numbers that Frank did, I think, 3 or 4 issues on. Yep. And it's like, wow, up to now, this is the best stuff that's been done. He was able to stay more on model with the characters and the vehicles than anybody had up to that point. And because they had Herb Trimpe and Don Perlin. You want to talk about some workhorses working on the book to start. And then I think after that, Mike Vosberg took over.
And I remember those guys, the guys like you're talking about. Of course, I love Trimpe, but I always thought the guys like Springer, the Don Perlins, the Mike Vosbergs, at the time, I was like, yeah, those guys are dull as dishwater. Now I take them in a heartbeat. But I remember Perlin did Defenders forever. He did a lot of the Valiant books. I didn't like them that much on. But he's an old dude. It was old. I met Perlin.
Yeah, nice guy. Al Milgram's another one. You know, it's just like, you know, you go back and look at that stuff. Everybody hated that. I was like, man, Al Milgram, fuck. But today it's just like, yeah, go back and look at it. It's just stuff. It ain't so bad. No, I remember, who was it? Oh God, I just lost the thought. Walt Simonson, when he was doing his run on Thor. You know, as you know, Walt wrote it for, I don't know, close to like 5-6 years.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
But he only drew about, I think he wrote it for about 5 years, but he only drew about 2.5 years of it. And for the second half, Sal Buscema did it. And everyone's like, man, this sucks. Da, 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 da. And you go back and it's like, look at it with a critical eye today. And you're like, you know what? Everyone hated it because it wasn't Walt Simonson. And Sal Buscema is not Walt Simonson. Sal Buscema is Sal Buscema. But there is some really amazing. Sal was doing some of his best work on that Thor run. He really, really was. I mean, there's some panels and some storytelling in those books that are just absolutely incredible. And you know, when you know Sal's work, especially from the Hulk, and then you look at his work on Thor, going, wow, I can't believe. I could see there's a certain amount of trying to stay consistent with what Uncle Walt had done, but the stuff that he was putting in that book really, really is underappreciated because he was doing probably some of the best artwork of his life in that book. He really, really was. I mean, I any chance I get, I try to. It's like, you really need to go in and look at that stuff with a better eye than what you did back in, what, 85 when it was new, because it's so much better than you remember.
Things change, man, when you're young. I mean, like, I look now how much I couldn't stand Don Heck, and I mean later Don Heck, and how many times I was pissed at DC, and still his later stuff is still not great. But you pick up a Justice League with a beautiful George Perez cover, and you open it up and you get an unbelievably bad Don Heck interior, or you get like a Buscema leaves Nova, and then literally terrible latter end of his career, Carmen Infantino takes over. And when you're a kid buying stuff, you don't know that these guys are old as Methuselah and can't draw anymore. You don't know that they drew great stuff before if you didn't know what they were. You just, like Ditko, when I saw a lot of his stuff, when I first saw some of the first stuff of his I thought it was terrible. You talk about not being a fan of Kirby when you first saw him. I couldn't stand Ditko when I first saw him. I later learned with seeing his old Spider-Man and his old Doctor Strange, but his late 70s and early 80s stuff when he was just kind of getting a check. I mean, when he went on like on ROM or he do an FF annual or whatever it was, I'm sorry, man, it's not that good. And but I love Ditko now, and so yeah, you change, you evolve, and then now with all these, anytime I open up any modern day freaking comic and look at usually you use the term art loosely. It always makes me appreciate some of those older artists, and and if I didn't crack open an older book, doesn't bother me as much when I would used to make fun of George Tuska or Frank Robbins. It changes. I mean, Frank Robbins Invaders, like, man, ugh. But I didn't know the guy was like 70 when he was doing that stuff, when he shouldn't have been working, but he had no choice. And they were throwing him a bone because he was one of the old school golden age artists, and they were giving him work in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
So
some of these guys are drawing right up until the end. I mean, I know a lot of guys to be like, if who were artists to be like, if I'm going to go, I'd rather go at my drawing table working on a piece. I just don't want it to be the one I'm working on now.
No, that's right, man. You know, Kirby stayed. You know, he drew a lot way past his way past his prime. Most of them do. Most of them do it, and you know, they don't have much of a choice.
Yeah, sadly, you know, I mean, that's what led is like, you know, that period of time of coming back to Marvel, and I think he was probably starting to. I don't know. I think he was on autopilot for when he was back at Marvel after he went to DC, because he wasn't. I mean, at that point, he was never going to be happy, and he realized it. Because, you know, I mean, all it would have taken to make him happy at Marvel originally was to make him art director and throw him a bone, throw him $1 an hour more, and he would have been happy. It's just a recognition of, yeah, you're the backbone of what holds us all together. We know it. And, you know, if you would have given him that acknowledgement, I think he would have been happy. But
Marvel was a snake house back then. You know, it's funny, of all the people who treated Kirby poorly, Marvel and DC both did it to them, but later 80s DC actually helped Jack Kirby out. Look, I got a lot of problems with Jeanette Kahn, but you know, in kind of she and others, actually, this probably came from others around her since she didn't know the industry that well. Like guys like Paul Levitz and some other people kind of talked her into throwing Kirby a bone with all those Superpowers comics and the Superpowers toy line and things like that. And because, you know,
he got he got some design residuals on a lot of stuff too.
And that was good of them to do that, you know, because he'd done so much for them and they gave him that. And, you know, by the second time I met him, man, he was Roz told me, she said, you know, when I was talking to her about it, Jack was talking to someone else. I was talking to Roz for a long time. She said, well, we wouldn't even be at this convention if I hadn't gone to the store. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, you know, Jack can't say no to anybody. And he's really not in the kind of, you know, condition really to be doing these conventions. This is 1990. And she said, but he answered the phone while I went to the store. And he said, yes, you know, and we're here. And, like later the next day, I think it was, I walked up to her. We'd just been talking on and off. They were behind the table at Mike Thibodeau's table. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He used to do a book called Last of the Viking Heroes, and he was good friends with the Kirbys. They were at his table, behind his table, the whole time of the con. Man, I couldn't believe it. We got to go talk to him all day. And
Mike did some later issue inking on.
Yeah, he's great
on Kirby. Yeah.
Nice guy. I walked up to her with a big old stack of quarter books. I got out of the quarter man. There were a bunch of Kirby, Jimmy Olsen's, and a bunch of other Kirby stuff. I wasn't asking her anything because I just showed her, hey, look what I got, showing her that I got some of Jack's, you know, comics, whatever. She goes, grabs them out of my hand, and says, "Well, look, you know, he's not doing any autographs here. I'll take him up to the room and get him to sign these for you."
Oh, wow.
His arm is hurting. And I said, oh, my God, no. I said, I can't do that. I said, look, I got his autograph last time we met him, and I got some art. I really appreciate that. But, no, I'm just showing you that. I don't want to. I know his arm is not feeling good. I can't do it. And so I didn't let her do it. But, my God, they're just so, you know, so nice. He told us war stories. I mean, it's just – and my favorite part of the whole thing was when he was going to he had to be at an event for the con, a big – that Saturday, I guess Saturday night, and he had to be at some big event. I forgot exactly what the event was. Now it was some kind of award ceremony of some sort, and he needed to get to it in a hurry. And so, true story. I said, "Well, I'll plow the way for you, Jack." And it was crowded, and I just Claude said, "Yeah, walk behind that big bastard right there." And I felt like, I'm not kidding. I know it's stupid. I felt like I was the ever-loving blue-eyed thing, plowing my way through a crowd for the creator, and it was it was so much fun. And we get to the thing. When we get our seats, the great Julius Schwartz, who was also cool to me, he came out there and he's the MC of the thing. And when he announces Jack Kirby, he did it this way. He said, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster created Superman. Bob Kane and Bill Finger created Batman. And Jack Kirby did everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing the kind of guy Jack was, Jack would have probably poo-pooed that a little bit. He'd say, no, there were a lot of other people who created a lot of other things, which is true. But Schwartz's point was, as far as impact is concerned, that's pretty much it.
Yep.
In comics. And that's always stayed with me. You know, Julius Schwartz was amazing. Really cool dude. And I bought a piece of original art off of him too. I got a Superboy issue by Kurt Schaffenberger just because I wanted a piece of Superboy art. So, and he was selling. So
yeah, when you look back at the old Superman Silver Age artist, Wayne Boring was always my favorite. I like the giant foreheads.
yeah,
I don't know why.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know why, but the giant forehead Superman's fun.
Yeah. Did I tell you that Claude airbrushed a shirt for me back then? This was the early '90s, and it said it had the Superman. I mean, it had the tombstone that said "Superman, rest in peace, 1938 to 1986, murdered." And on the front of it, it had like a picture of a brick wall with John. He had John Byrne doing a double take, drawing the thing standing behind him saying "Originality paging John, originality paging John." And I walked in front of Byrne a couple of times and made him read it, and he didn't say anything to me. And a little later, I go show it to Schwartz, and he starts laughing. He goes, "Did you show that to Byrne?" And I said, "Yeah, he didn't say anything." And he said, "Well, you ought to go show it to him again." He's last said, "I don't want to get kicked out. Shit, he might get mad at me." I said, "We are again. I love a lot of Byrne's work, but we are talking about a guy who once a friend of mine saw Byrne at a con. I'll tell you about that with a sign that said, 'Don't talk to me.'" So. Boy's got issues, but still like a lot of his work.
Yeah, I think if somebody were to sit down and with John and actually try to diagnose him, they find out he's probably somewhere on the spectrum a little bit.
I told you. Did I tell you about the? I'm going to try to get it for you if I can, because you'd love it. The Comics Journal issue. The first time I read a John Byrne interview was a Comics Journal. This is the point where I was liking his X-Men, but that's all I'd really seen by him, other than some of his Marvel team-ups, things like that. He's a real long interview. I think it's number 58 or 57. I'm not sure exactly. What's got a great drawing of his and Austin's X-Men on the cover, and it's real long and in depth. And he pissed off so many freaking people that this was in a day where there weren't SJWs. So if someone's pissed at you, they would write me nasty letters and be pissed, but nobody was getting canceled. They just hated him and called him because he said some really inflammatory things that I won't say here. He said things I won't even say here.
I've heard aspects of this. I remember, I think it was recently that Bob Layton had inked him.
Yes, and I can't repeat. Just to be nice, look, it's not an SJW thing, guys. It's just the kind of thing I'm not going to repeat it, but it was pretty. I'll put it to you like this: it was kind of homophobic, as that's what it would be called today. And a lot
the Bob Layton thing wasn't homophobic; it was just critical of his inking.
No, this was. But his dad picked up the piece of art that Layton had inked on a Hulk annual, and he was referring to the Angel, and he said, "This guy is." I can't say it. I won't say it, but he basically said that and then he went on to elaborate. He thought that all of Bob Layton's men looked. Use the Q word. Okay.
Well, there was
slimy. He said greasy and slimy, and then the Q word.
Greasy and slimy. That was said. That's what he thought of his found his inking to be greasy looking.
He said
right.
He threw that in with the word, a word now sometimes used positively, but the Q word. If you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He did also say the F word for gay a couple times, and I remember I got that as a back issue. My very first issue of Comics Journal back in it was 81 was all the tumult and all the response to that interview. So I had not read it yet. And I'm reading all these angry letters from gay people that were pissed off at it. I'm like, whoa, this is an amazing magazine. This is some messed up crap. It's funny though. And I, of course, again, being a young and mischievous type, he endeared me to me because not because I don't like him saying mean or monstrous things, just because I thought it was funny that he would just say shit. And back then, it's just different times, folks. I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff he's recanted over the years and been like, it's different times. I mean, he's he's gone back. We talked about it before. He's gone back over the Superboy and Legion of Superhero aspect of his run on Superman, and should have left it alone. Should have had found a way to incorporate it more so than what we wound up doing.
Kind of goes back to what I was telling you about what we were talking about, that old thing where something good comes from bad and bad goods and all that kind of stuff. As much as I hated all that stuff, that saga, that story that ended, at least gave closure to the end of my beloved, Superboy of the Silver and Bronze Age, was touching and really good. And, Paul Levitz, at that time, Legion was still relatively untouched and even continued after that, but they killed Superboy. And it was a mixed bag of I'm angry when I'm doing it, but it was a good story. one of those deals. But
Yeah.
very sad, very sad. Oh man, I'll tell you what. Well, we've been here for a while now, and we ought to, let's think of another saga. Like I say, the one you're talking about, I don't have yet. I could work on getting it, but if you got any in the meantime that you can think of to do, I do have those Garney books somewhere. I'd have to look and dig them out. I'm not sure where they are, but I like Wade and Garney's first run on Captain America.
Very much got into what does it mean to be an American, and what does it mean to be a symbol of America in the second run. But the first run is just pure fun, pure action, and even Garney himself has said that when they came back together after the Heroes Reborn thing, that it wasn't the same, that Mark's head was in a different place, and I just wanted to draw cool, funny books. And Garney is a pretty cool dude. I've talked to him on through Twitter and met him at cons a couple of times, and he's just a really kind of cool, very down to earth, solid the earth kind of guy. Very nice guy to talk to.
Excellent. Yeah, and I don't know what is he doing now. Is he doing anything? I mean, there's no comics industry really. I don't know what these guys are doing.
He's still working for Marvel. He's doing some. I'm trying to remember what it was I saw that he was working on, but right now he's still working for Marvel. And as far as when his contract's up, I don't know. There's been, I have talked to him with a couple things, but really, it comes down to whatever is offered to him at the time and what have you. But it's funny because as much as the Image guys wound up getting all the acclaim and the notoriety and people know who they are, there were the other guys that came out of that period who are the ones that I've gravitated towards as storytellers and artists that have actually garnered my respect, which is Garney and Greg Capullo. Even though he did go to Image, he wasn't, part of the founders. Greg is a hell of a storyteller, and a lot of people have called him a McFarlane clone, which isn't true, but there's definitely cut from the same cloth, definitely some influence. And yeah, you try to ape the guy's style a little bit because you're taking over his book. But and the other one's Lee Weeks. Lee Weeks is amazing. I just wish he was. I like him. I think he's diabetic, and trying to keep him on a regular title because of his health issues is a little tough. I could be wrong, could be something else, but that man may be the heir apparent to like a John Buscema because he's that good, and nobody talks about him. And he should be on everybody's lips.
Yeah. Well, maybe some of those guys need to go to the crowdfunding Indiegogo type thing, like EVS and some of these guys are doing.
Starting to happen. I mean, hell, just 3 in the last 2 weeks. The last year, we had Graham Nolan and Shane Davis and Kenneth Rocafort, who didn't particularly enjoy a Superman run, but I don't think it's his art. I think it's just because I didn't like the new 52 Superman.
Right. I hate that shit. Yeah. Well, good. More of them are going over there then, and and following the splendid example of EVS, who's, led, I suppose. That's fantastic. Yeah. What the hell? Oh, sorry. I got a big BB noise. Sorry. Well,
you've been messaged.
Yes, I have, and it'll wait because she doesn't know I'm online doing important stuff like YouTubing.
But yeah, no, we could do that. There's a few other things. I'd like to hit some independent stuff. We haven't covered.
Oh yeah, look, I mean, dude, older or younger stuff, whatever. There's so many. Did you ever read Astro City or no?
No, but it's been on my radar. But I mean, that's a lot of reading to do.
Right, but you could just, at least if you just did the first 6-issue miniseries, it'd be enough to start. And then because you might read that and it may not be your bag, you might not want to continue. But if you ever do, I'm one of those few out there. There are others, I guess. Astro City, in my opinion, Astro City at its finest, which would be that series, and really up until into the late aughts or whatever, and even beyond, is some of the greatest just comic books in general, but especially the superhero genre ever, and I mean ever written. To me, V6 never come close to it. Marvel's is close. Some of his other stuff, I mean, I really loved his Untold Tales of Spider-Man, for example. Nothing comes close to his Astro City, and I put it up against just about anything I've ever read in terms of that first miniseries, Confessions, some of his individual issues, some of the most brilliant comic books I've ever read in my life.
Did you ever read his Avengers run with?
I did.
George Perez and Ordway, and then I think Alan Davis was kind of the end of that.
I did, and I liked a lot of it. I thought it was okay. I thought it was kind of telling back. At that time he was having some medical problems, and he was having and at the time, of course, as you may know, he was doing Astro City, and he was doing Avengers and Thunderbolts, and maybe there were a couple of Aerosmith, whatever. He had a couple of other books that he was doing, and he was popular. And every time someone would say, because Astro City had a very erratic schedule. I mean, with an issue of Astro, it wasn't quite Planetary level, which we'll talk about. I don't know if you ever read Planetary, but it was close, because you get a new Astro City, and you're like, oh man, I can't believe we got a new issue of Astro City. We got it. And then you might wait a year before getting another one, or 5 months, or it happened all the time.
Hey, look, it's Bigfoot. Bigfoot. Somebody just saw Bigfoot.
Yes. Now, Planetary is the all-time champion at that, but Astro City was like that. And when an issue would come out, you might even say, hey, man, did you see Astro City came out? No. Well, really? But anyway, and it was always, I mean, 9 times out of 10, it was so brilliant, you just didn't care. And except when you got done reading it, you're like, oh, shit, it's going to be forever for this next one. And people would ask him, dude, why are you taking so long? You're coming out on time with Avengers or Thunderbolts, all this stuff. And we understand you might make more money at the other ones, but what about Astro City? I mean, it's still popular. And he said, well, because I'm kind of sick and I don't really feel like I can write. So wait a minute, you're feeling like you're sick and you don't have all of your faculties, but you can still churn out the other stuff. And he said, basically, pretty much came out and admitted, yeah, I can't be at my best for what really matters, which is Astro City. In other words, if you see where I'm coming from, he was sort of like pretty much admitting that he can't give it his best, and that means more to him than just cranking it out. And I met the guy once, and seemed like kind of a humorless sort, kind of a weenie, to be honest with you. He and Scott McCloud, who was fans of both of them. But look, I don't care if he's a weenie. I love Astro City so much. Good God, I love it to this. I mean, and when they brought it back in 2013 as a Vertigo book, I was absolutely floored that it was coming out on time. And they did 52 issues. What is it with that number 52? I don't know. Until it was finally ended. A couple of those issues here and there were almost on a level with his earlier works of Astro City. Like there was miniseries, there was the regular series, there was multiple miniseries. I have them all, every one of them. It was his Vertigo run for DC from 2013 to 2017. Some of it was some of the lowest quality Astro City he ever did, and it was still better than most things. But then a few of them were almost on level with his best work, but it was on time almost all the time, and I was astonished every time. It took me 2 years to get used to that coming out on time. I was like, whoa, this Astro City's. And I even asked my friend at the comics. I said, what the fuck, man? Astro City came out this week? He said, yeah, it might be a little. They say it might be a week late, but it's going to come out. I said, a week late? Shit, that's fine. And yeah, I mean, they got 52 issues out over the course of 4 years. That's crazy for Astro City, and it wasn't the best of his work, other than a couple of the early ones. A couple of the standalone ones were brilliant. He had a couple of oh my god! But there's some of the ones before that. Some of the greatest things I've ever read. I ran across a channel. There's a channel. I forget the girl's name. Girl, I'm not an old man. A lovely young lady has a channel on here that I really enjoy. I'm gonna find it. And I can't remember the name of it. She breaks down comics brilliantly, and she is really smart, young, cute girl. And even though she loves, old classic comics history, she's really good. And she did a couple on Astro City. I'm like, thank you. I'm not the only person in the universe loving and seeing how great this book is at its best. But, that's just me. Sorry. I rant when I get to Astro City. I can't help it.
That's all right. No, I'm just sitting here looking at. I also recently picked up re-picked up the Superman Batman World's Finest by Dave Gibbons and Steve Rude. And in fact, tomorrow I'm on a hunt for the Superman versus the Incredible Hulk that Steve Rude drew.
Oh God, great stuff, man. Good.
I'm hoping to God I can find it, but it's going to be needle in a haystack time for that.
I tried to find some of those Justice League Avengers crossovers because I was stubborn, didn't buy them when they came out because I was pissed off. Didn't like the lineups. Now I've decided after all this time, all right, everyone's telling me I should read it. I don't want to because I was pissed that we didn't get the original one. And guess what? They're priced astronomically, so I won't be reading that anytime soon.
Yeah, the recently was able to pick up the Treasury editions of the Incredible Hulk versus Batman, and it just showed up yesterday here because I knew it was going to be up here. I was going to, so I had it sent to where I was going to be, not where I was, which is the Russ Andrews Superman versus Spider-Man. So it's back in my collection again. So I'm like, yay!
Dude, that is great stuff. But yeah, man, it's just
right now trying to find a good comics is a needle in a haystack. You can find it, but boy, you got to hunt.
No, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, what can you do? I have I was gonna say, you talking about that? You were talking about that crossover. Oh, I can't remember now what it was. Anyway, I'll remember later. But well, dude, we'll think of something to do. If you come up with one, just give me a holler and let me know.
Next it doesn't have to be something we don't have to pick something we like either. We could do the first 5 issues of Spawn or Youngblood and cover that as well, and it'd be painful, but it sure would make for interesting podcast.
I'm not the biggest Spawn hater in the universe, right? I hate Spawn, but yeah, I mean I have to read it, but other than that, yeah, I read the first couple, and I remember tearing up my issue number 2 of Spawn in front of a guy at BSA Comics because he wanted to buy it. And he was good. And someone said, "You could have got $90 for that." I said, "I got $1,000 worth of pleasure tearing it up." Screw you. By the way, the one other story about that, about the Justice League Avengers, is we all know that it was done like 40 pages were done by Perez in the early '80s, and then Marvel shat on it. Didn't happen because of Jim Shooter. Did I ever tell you that I saw him sell those friggin' pages to Rob Liefeld? I've watched the money transaction go down between the two of them in Dallas, and I wanted to cry. I watched him give him $20,000 for 40 pages. And I'm like, I want to beat him. I want to go beat him up and take those fucking pages away. I wanted to beat him up anyway because it was Rob Liefeld. But he was actually really nice to me, so I felt, but I mean, I'm not a fan. But dude.
Nah. I can never look Rob in the eye and tell him I like your art. I can't do it. It's just not possible. But I won't crap on him as a human being. He seems like a relatively nice dude, and he doesn't, I think he tries his best, and there's certain things that maybe he may agree with, and a lot of things he does, but stay away from the cancel culture or the cesspool that a lot of comic books has become. But so I don't crap on him as a human being, but yeah, I can't. No. If there was ever any question, that promo picture of Captain America that came out before the series did, the side view, and you're just like, this really. I just had Ron Garney and Mark Waid giving me the best Captain America I've probably had in 15 years, and this is what I'm getting.
Oh,
and
I
just cried. I just cried, and I was like, "This is just not good. Not good."
Are you trying to say people don't have 50,000 teeth in their head?
No. It's 32 teeth on the top and 32 teeth on the bottom.
Not 32,000. Are you sure? Because Rob Liefeld seems to think that there are a lot more teeth. Whew, man, that Captain America art, that might be one of his worst ever, and that's saying something.
Yeah, it is.
Ooh. Yeah, again, and he was nice to me.
No,
and,
nice guy,
cool dude.
Nice guy.
And people were picking on me later for not. They said, "Why didn't you beat his ass?" So I said, "What am I, 12? What are you talking about?" And I said, "Okay, I guess I was sort of like Spider-Man when he's at the movie studio and he has a chance to backhand the dude and save Uncle Ben. I could have saved the world from a lot of shitty art right then and there in 1994." But I let him go because he was being nice. I'm sorry.
Nah, that one's okay. I don't like his stuff, but I don't find him offensive. There's other people that you just like. All right, you really. Let me put it to you this way. I remember because being unaware of the behind the scenes nature of the politics of comic books that I now am very privy to. Okay, I remember when they were ousting Gail Simone off of Birds of Prey and Batgirl. It was mainly Batgirl, like they were getting it over.
Yeah.
And it wasn't badly written. In fact, it was one of the best written female centric books at DC. And you know, I like reading about cool chicks too. So you know, it was a book on my radar that I was reading. And when I heard she was fired, there was a campaign to get her reinstated on the book. And online wise, I took part in that because I didn't know. It was only afterwards that I've heard the stories, and it was just like we could have ended it all then. We could have ended this. We could have not been here 10 years ago, and maybe even have a flourishing comic industry right now. If that like I think it's going to go down as the rehiring of Gail Simone as a pinnacle moment in the history of comics on the New 52. And it's just like, you know, because she's written some stuff that's not bad. I mean, her early runs on Birds of Prey and Secret Six and Villains United and stuff like that, they're readable, they're entertaining. And she even did a run in Action that wasn't half bad. That Byrne drew, even though he hates those what they did to those pages.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, and then it's just like, but looking back now, it's like, what did I do? Oh my goodness! I hold my head in shame over this. I'm talking absolute shame. I've actually super chatted Ethan and asked for forgiveness because seriously, like I paid money to ask for forgiveness over it. It's like we didn't know. We didn't know.
Forgive them for the new, not what they do. Well, RR tells me my compassion doomed the comic book world. That's true. That's true, man. I'm responsible for all those horribly drawn feet. And that one shot, one of the worst comic book pages I've ever seen in my life with Left Field, in a good comic that was written by Alan Moore, by the way, of it was a Judgment Day, and was it Shaft? I forget which character it was. I didn't like the Image characters. I only liked it when Alan Moore wrote those. But he throws a cigar on the ground or some shit, and the perspective, basically, the cigar looks like a 6,000-foot log, and there's no perspective on it at all. I mean, if you've ever seen that page,
yeah,
it's just terrible. And people put examples of bad Rob Liefeld art all the time in various things, and there's a lot of competition.
Well, there's the bad Liefeld art, and then there's the swiped Liefeld art, and there was a swiper no swiping file on him that was a mile long, where it was the New Mutants issue. This is the first time I'd ever heard of anything such. It was a 2-page spread in the New Mutants with Shatterstar, and I don't know, he had some sort of monstrous looking version of Magneto on his back. I don't know. I didn't read the book. But anyway, and then somebody says, see this? And I was like, yeah, that looks familiar. And it's like, you ever read Ronin by Frank Miller? And I'm like, yeah. And then he pulls that. I'm like, son of a bitch. I mean, it could have been light boxed. It was so close. And you're just like, wow. That's just, wow. I don't know what else to say to that, but wow. And I like Ronin. I know you're not as big of a fan on it as I am, but it's when I talk about the ankle, that's
very Ronin.
There's definitely a European science fiction flair to Ronin, and you have to kind of know that going into the ankle that's going to be there, and.
Well, we were kind of pissed off at Miller because he left Daredevil, man. We're like, dude, why are you leaving Daredevil for this?
He wanted Batman.
Huh?
He wanted Batman.
Yeah, he wanted Batman, and he got him. I mean, but he did Ronin. And, I ordered the fuck out of Ronin. I stocked, I tried to take it easy on it, but my goddamn owner of the store I worked at Southland Comics at the time insisted, because it was Frank Miller, we were going to sell 500 copies. And I said, you must be out your damn mind. But I mean, are you sure? I shortened his order, and he went back and changed it. Something stupid like 300 or 400. I said, all right, man. He said, you better push that. But I push shit. I mean, it's Frank Miller. What do you want me to do?
It would take me hours to find, but there's a comic shop about 15 minutes away from where I'm at now that, when I tell you, has hundreds and hundreds of dollar boxes. And I've gone through them looking forward, because I was trying to put in a run of Warlord together, Mike Grell's Warlord.
Nice.
And I think about 20 issues short. Anyway, and I know I've seen all 4 issues within this. If I wanted to put them together, I could have done it. All 4 issues of Ronin in there.
Oh yeah. I mean, and even the trade may have done well, but the regular issues, people really at that point a book that expensive, because it wasn't prestige format, but it was close, but it was still staple back. But it was
$6. It was $6.
It was ridiculous. And back then, Jesus Christ, there were no
75 cents.
Oh, absolutely, but people. I mean, again, I didn't know. I put it out there, man. But I was like, but you talk about those all those bargain bins. Do you know how many times I've been either in state, sometimes even in Texas? See, Southland Comics that I ran in the early '80s before I had my own shop later. We had I must have bagged, and we didn't have boards back then much, so we just bagged and priced one time over the course of a couple of years, maybe. I'm not gonna say a million, but hundreds of thousands of comics. We had a gigantic house, a whole house, small house in North Baton Rouge full of them. But anyway, I can't tell how many times I've been to other stores later when he went up selling all that shit all over the place. I go to, it was nothing for me to like go to a comic shop that I'd never been to in another state. And I remember I'm going to these bargain bins, and I'm starting to see these tickets. I used to price them all by hand. I would write the price and stuff only on these little tabs and put them on there. And I would start looking and I said, this handwriting looks familiar. This comic looks familiar. These comics look for holy shit. I wrote that a good 3 or 4 times. It happened in Texas. It's happened in Mississippi. I was like, what in the fuck? All over Louisiana. I'm like, my God, what he sold this shit all over the place. And I mean, this is the same box I put this in. In fact, he made me miss 2 cons that they all got to go to. Got to stay home. I had to stay home pricing and bagging goddamn comics at the shop. And
then he sold it as a lot for probably here's $300. You give me $50.
Crazy stuff, man. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. I had the best time, and all my greatest friends and best times at comic shops that I've either worked in or owned, and other geek venues, of course.
Back in the day, there was Baton Rouge down by the river in Catfish Town. There was a comic shop. Did not last long. I think I was only there once. And holy shit, that dude had no boxes. He just had books everywhere. I mean, it's like they're falling off of shelves. I mean, it was the most disorganized shop I'd ever been in my life. There was just, I mean, you had to be careful not to step on them, literally. I mean, it was like somebody had set off a bomb, and it rained comic books all over the shop. You'd find some like behind the shelf, up against a window, on the floors, and I mean, there was no rhyme, reason, or organization to that shop at all. It was just like he took his long boxes and dumped them on the floor or on top of the shelves, and wherever they fell is wherever they fell.
Comic Book Emporium. She tried to sell that shop to me. I almost bought it, but I went and just started my own. And I almost bought it though, but no. And then she moved over to up to Lee Drive and Highland Road or something.
Was that the same place? Because when she went over there, the place was nice and organized. But man, that Catfish Town store, that Catfish Town store looked like somebody had run a truck through. It was craziness. The only other place I'd ever seen like that, there was a shop on Magazine Street, and smelled like and his is like that, where I mean, it had a stairs up to the right of the store near the register, and on every step there was a stack of comic books going up, and
yes, indeed,
there's no telling what the hell it was. I mean, you had to just run through it, and you may find a $150 book, or you may find a 10-cent book, and it did not matter. It was just all in stacks. There was nothing. It was insanity.
he had a pet parrot that he kept in there, and then if some kid called it a parrot, and he said that's a penguin, not a parrot, and if he called it a parrot, he would kick him out of the store. There's one of those shops in Abilene, Texas. There we go. Splash Page Comics. Thanks for popping in. Nice to meet you. I could go to man, if I could, I'd travel the country, just go in while there still are comic shops. I'd go hit every damn I just love going to comic shops all over the place, man. I can't get enough of it. I don't get to do it anymore, but man, I love it.
Well, with my work, a lot of travel's involved, and anytime they send me to a new place, it's like I've said it before. It's like having a whoopee. I've got to know they're there. I got to know where the good ones are. I got to know where the bad ones are. If I'm going to be in a place more than a week or a week, in a weekend, including the weekend, then I need to know where the comic shop is, because there may be something there that I don't have, and it's a new shop, and I haven't pillaged it yet. And
best, I love it. And if Gary ever opens this shop, if it's close enough, I'm going to make a trip there somehow. I want to go see that. The great Nerdrotic Gary. I will make a special vacation of it and go just to go visit his shop, because I know it'll be amazing.
Yeah, I know he's talked about San Antonio. I've never been to San Antonio. I've been to Austin. I spent a year in Austin, and plenty of time in Houston, although he'd have some competition in Houston, whereas I don't know about San Antonio. Houston's got a bunch of pretty good shops. There's one in Westheimer I really like. Yeah,
it's been a while since I've been to shops in Houston. I used to love going there, and in Dallas. Atlanta has some amazing ones. Or did anyway. I don't know if they're still great. There's Oxford. I mean, sometimes you go in there. I remember back again when there was actually a comic market and there were a lot of comics coming out. When I used to go to Dragon Con every year, I'd make sure I went to this place called Oxford Comics. And you know what? If anything I missed over the past year, that was when I was actually buying new comics throughout the late 90s and into the early aughts, and until I stopped buying most stuff. If I'd missed any series, I'd say, we're going to Dragon Con in September. I'll go to Oxford. And Jesus, I don't know how, they must be bazillionaires. Because you go in there, they've got every damn statue, they've got every damn toy, they've got every comic conceivable on their racks, not like local shops here that are very selective. And then they got one big wall full of racks where you could, if you're looking for a current issue of something, or maybe a few months back, you dig down deep and it's almost all there. You could go 5, 6, 8 months back and it's in there. It's there, just on the rack. It was amazing. They're still like that, I guess. I don't know.
Around 2011, I spent some time in Richmond, and they had a couple of really good shops there. And recently went back, and most of that's gone. So the shops there are pretty all right, but nothing like what I had when I was in that area for 4 months. Back in 2011, there's 2 stores there that were just incredible. And then up in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, there's some really good shops here. And one of them's got like 3 chains. One's real close to me. And like I said, that's the one that's got hundreds of long boxes of nothing but dollar bins. They've got their own section that's probably, 20 long tables or folding tables, and then if you look underneath all of those folding tables and underneath all of the alphabetized more high dollar issues, there's still more dollar comics. They've got to have over 2,000 books of long boxes full of nothing but dollar books. It's insanity. But you can never go through them all. So you just sit down and say, I'm going to go there when it opens, and I'm going to start going through long boxes, and
I love it, man.
I'm going to be there till they close, man, and just go see if I can find some treasures. And that's what you do,
Yeah, buddy, it's the best. That's what I love to do. It's Splash Page Comics. If you go to Dallas, says check out Duncanville Books. I will. Well, that sounds cool. I don't know that one. I used to go to Titan all the time, and there were a couple other ones in Dallas.
Yeah, I lived in Austin.
Comics, of course.
I lived in Austin for a year, and they had I think there was like 2 or 3 shops there. There wasn't a whole lot. Austin Books and Comics on Lamar was probably considered the best. That's the one I normally went to. They had another one that was called Dragon something or another. I can't remember exactly what it was, and it wasn't a bad shop, but it seemed like they were mostly geared towards gaming. And a lot of the guys who played Dungeons and Dragons and Magic would go to that shop.
I wonder, does Buddy Saunders still own Lone Star Comics? So I haven't seen him in forever. I googled the name of my shop just for the hell of it not too long ago, just to see if there was another shop, and there is. My shop was called Mega City Comics. I was always a big Judge Dredd fan. That's what I called it. And there is one. There's one, I believe, across the pond. So, and I mentioned that to somebody the other day. Said, "Oh, I bet you're pissed." No, I think that's fantastic. I'm glad there's another. I'm glad there's a Mega City Comics somewhere. I know mine was probably called that first. Who knows? Maybe it wasn't. And but I think I'm thrilled about that. I think it's great.
Was Steve the first one to open a shop in Baton Rouge?
No, I was. But I opened this called Southland Comics. Steve was in the flea market though. He and Raymond Young were first. They were selling mostly back issues though, but Steve's shop was open later. But he was dealing in the flea market though.
He was over on Florida. In a shop by Ward's. It was his first shop. It was called Comtronics.
Yep.
And nobody knew it was a comic shop because of the name. It sounded like an electronics shop. And then I guess him and his partner had a falling out. They
yeah.
And they had opened a second shop in Dedham Springs called ENC Collectibles. And then everything kind of fell apart. And then Steve just kind of went on his own and had that other shop in that market where I think he was the only English-speaking guy there. Everyone else spoke Vietnamese. For I don't know what Steve's. I think Steve. He left there, and then he was. I know he had a place. He had a little place. That little strip mall next to the movie theater on O'Neill. That didn't last very long, and then he was in the flea market in Denham. And then the flood hit, and I want to say that was when he got out. I'm not even sure Steve's still alive. If he's out there, I hope he's doing well. But I mean, he wasn't a young man when he was running a shop in the 80s.
No. He was a slimy little thing, though, I'll tell you that much. But Claude did a mural for him, and boy, Claude used to get pissed at that motherfucker.
Well, he had two murals. There was a DC mural and a Marvel mural. There was two of them he had. Yeah, big giant piece of plywood. Yeah, I mean that was a lot of work that went into those. There's a lot of characters on those.
Splash Page is telling us about some comics. You have, of course, Lone Star, and you get another shop, Bebop Comics in Kansas City. Great shop. Okay, cool. I'd love to go. Go ahead.
There's about 7 shops. Last time I was in Kansas City, it was around 2011. There's about 7 or 8 shops, and I think a lot of them. There was a bunch of them. There was like 5 of them were chained, and then on the east side of Kansas City, there was a shop that this lady owned, and she had a bunch of cool back issues and stuff. I really liked her shop a lot. And there was one other shop I'd went to, but yeah, I mean, I was there a week, and I was like, okay, it's Saturday. I'm not working. Got to go to comic shops. I just have to. That's what I got to do.
Oh, hell yeah. Did you know Carl Tupper at BSI? Did you go there?
I met Carl. By the time I met Carl, he was already in a wheelchair. I originally
in the 80s, so he was always in a wheelchair.
Yeah. But yeah, I originally started going to BSI in Covington and didn't even know about the New Orleans location or the Metairie location until there was a signing there where all the Image guys showed up one night.
I was there.
And I was, yeah. And so that's when I was like, oh, they got another location over there. And but I want to say most of the time that I went to New Orleans, I was going to Crescent City Comics, and they now have 2 locations. Last I heard,
they all. Yeah. I worked with all them when I went with Carl. They all started with Carl, and I worked with them, Les and Cap and all those guys. Carl's one of the dearest, closest friends I've ever had in my life. He, of course, helped me start my shop. And then when I came back to New Orleans later, he let me work for him for a while. I'll never forget early in the 90s when I was, I would go pick him up at night. We'd go get the comics at the airport. When I do the folders to like 3, do his folders and stuff for him to like 3 in the morning and stuff. It was just so much fun doing it. And then his family was on his ass constantly. I'd been on a vacation in like 10 years. And he asked me, he said, I got to go for a week. I don't want to do it. He said, Mike, that voice he had, Mike, you're the some bitch I trust to hand these keys to. What you do it for? I said, get to be here for a week, run the funny book stuff. Yeah, buddy, I haven't done it in a while. And I did it for him. And I guess, man, it was just, this is one of those things You just never can tell, because when you have somebody you kind of lose contact with for a while, this is one of the saddest things for me. And you keep saying, I wonder how that some bitch is doing. I need to call him, and you just don't. And you just forget.
Yeah.
I went almost a year just not calling him for some reason. And then I found out when I got the news that he had passed, because like not 2 days before I go, I need to call that motherfucker. I haven't called him in a while. Shit, let me call that bastard. And he would call me sometimes. We both just forgot sometimes. And when I found out he died, this was like late, it was early 2011. I just lost it. And when I went to the funeral and everything, it was brutal. It was horrible and everything. So I walk into a comic shop about a year or so after he passed in Atlanta. And I don't know I'd never been to it before. I walk in there, start talking to the lady. She's very friendly. It wasn't much of a shop, really, but I told her where I was from and all this kind of stuff. She said, "Oh, do you know Carl Tupper? If you're from New Orleans and Louisiana?" I said, "Yeah, he was one of my best friends. Why? How's he doing?" I'm like, "Oh, boy."
Yeah.
And she just didn't know, because again, you lose touch with people. And when I told them, like, she hadn't seen him in a while, but I mean, this was a motherfucker. For people who don't know, Carl Tupper had a direct line to Marvel and DC. He would call Bob Harris and tell him and call him a fuckhead. And he didn't care. He got Stan Lee on the phone one time just to fuck with me. He didn't make me talk to him or anything, but he said he kept teasing me like he was going to, and it was nothing for him to call Marvel or DC, call Paul Levitz, call whoever was, Jim Shooter, people like that, and he was the best, man. I miss him so much, and I was pretty messed up at the damn funeral because I just felt so guilty that I didn't talk to him. And that goes, man. So
yeah, I met Paul Levitz. I met Paul Levitz once. He's very knowledgeable. Can tell that if he knew you, he'd be very sweet to you, but around new people, kind of a little prickly.
Oh man, really? Because he's one of my, as a Legion fanatic, I love him.
Not as a bad guy. I'm not saying he's a bad guy, but you're talking this is a guy who very much took his job as publisher very seriously at the time. Yeah. Much more so than anybody who's come after him has. If we only knew.
True. Yeah, so, Dan Dildio. But I because as a Legion of Superheroes fanatic, especially Silver and Bronze, he's my favorite Legion writer, and man, I could talk his ears to be. In fact, I used to talk to him on Facebook all the time, and I'm just like through the messenger, and he would answer me and talk to me a little bit, and that was pretty cool for me.
Yeah, well, I actually knew one of the contributors to Superman homepage. Like, we would meet up at Chicago Con and pal around a little bit, not a whole lot, but a little bit. And if anybody doesn't know, there's a website out there called Superman Homepage. It's probably the most comprehensive Superman website on the internet. I can't recommend it any higher. But anyway, so Superman Homepage used to actually use the font, the Superman font, to write Superman Homepage at the top. And I was at the Chicago Con when Paul Levitz basically gave a verbal cease and desist on using that font, or the lawyers would be talking.
It's fucking stupid.
And I'm like, really? We're going to fight over a font? Okay.
DC, man. Dude, well, I did tell you about what they did to a friend of mine with a comic shop. By the way, Splash Page says before the pandemic, he was traveling around the U.S. and filming comic shops, putting on his channel. That's fantastic, dude. I'd like to take a look at that. That's great. I will look for it.
There's a podcast I like to listen to out of Tampa, called Bounding into Bunch of Dorks, 2-Dimension Podcast. They're a little dry, but they have really good knowledge and they really love comic books. And I wonder if if this is the same guy. They were talking to a guy who was basically chronicling comic book. They chronicled basically the end of one comic shop, and I think they were basically traveling and trying to find other comic shops and talk about them and what have you. But it was interesting.
Wow.
But it's not a bad podcast, but it's definitely, it was one of those, I had yours to listen to, but then, a work day is 8 to 10 hours, and I need enough podcast material to listen to get me through the show. And so I found these guys out of Tampa, and I like them. They're real kind of down to earth guys.
I told you, a buddy of mine had a shop called Gulf Coast Comics in the mid '80s, and he had. I may have told you this before. Forgive me if I told you this before. He had, Ambush Bug was huge at that point, so he put Ambush Bug on his sign on the comic book shop. Well, fucking DC I don't know how they got a hold of it. They found out and told him he has to take that down. And I walk in the shop and he tells me this. I mean, I was living in Baton Rouge, but I would go up there every weekend. I said, "Are you kidding? Tell them to go fuck themselves. You're selling their comic books." And he said, "Well, I don't know. I've got to take it down." I said, "Well, call Marvel and tell them what happened." I said, "Why?" I said, "Just call them." And Carl Tupper told him the same thing. So he called him, and guess what? Marvel paid for Spider-Man put on the fucking thing. And it's like, dude, you're selling their comics. Fuck them. You can't have a character for them. You're selling their fucking funny books. Are you kidding me? Fuck DC.
How many of these comic shops are nothing but littered? You can't even see in the windows. They're just littered with posters in the windows of the same thing. What does it matter if it's a poster or whether it's on the sign?
So stupid, man. Are you kidding me? I can't have it on my. They don't do that shit. I don't think they do it anymore. But it's like, are you people idiots? Now, again, I understand if it's a business or something else. I passed a tire store down in Baton Rouge a couple of weeks ago, and they got Superman's image, not the S, mind you, his image on a tire store.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, you probably shouldn't be doing that, but whatever. I'm not going to report you. Fuck DC. But still, this is a comic book shop, assholes.
Well, the great Joker's Palace spelled it with a U instead of an E, and there was a reason for it.
Yeah, and he's a cool dude. He was a friend of mine, Jeff. And I was like, "Fuck DC, you got kidding me? You can't. You're selling comic books, man. You fucking dummies."
Jeff is responsible for putting a lot of comic book fans together. Jeff,
cool dude. He's out of the business now, of course, but who isn't?
Yeah, Jeff's like is like my older brother. He really is. I've known Jeff ever since. When he was working for Bill on Sherwood, and 89, yeah. And when I discovered he had his shop in the early 90s, we developed a friendship. And Jeff's. I don't have any older brothers, but not by blood, but yeah, Jeff is definitely. And I ran into him at a convention in New Orleans. This first time we had talked in about a year, and.
Me too.
He's doing well.
Yeah, I brought to him not too long ago. Jeff's cool, good people. Back when he had his radio show, he had me on there a couple times with him on his KLSU, not KLSU. It was the one that was whichever one that was out there in Port Allen.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Nah, that him and his dad, his mom, that whole family are good people. So, and his wife Lisa, they're all good people. I really like them. But. Well, man, we've managed to kill probably another hour and a half. It's been 3.5 hours. Probably I'll let these people go. I don't even know if anyone's watching anymore.
Well, we got a few people. Like I say, we're still a young channel. Even though I did this 11 years on BTR, it's going to take a while. Nevertheless, all of our friends who did show up, the great RR, a new friend also, Latino Slant, a new friend. Paulie was out there. I mean, I don't know if he's still with us. Jobber was with us. Claude popped in. My good buddy Richard popped in. I'm sure a few other people popped in and out. And if you did and you didn't, you're not there, that's fine. But if you did and you hear it, that's great. We have a new friend, Splash Page Comics, and it is nice to meet you, sir, or maybe not, sir. I don't know. He's just a Splash Page Comics. Well, you're the 50th sub. I got 50 old subs there. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. I'm just assuming you're a dude. I didn't mean to be. And it says Mr. White Glove, so I'll say you're a feller. But if you're not, it's okay too, of course. But I just didn't know. You can't know these days. But I appreciate you being there. And RR's still with us. And I love my new friend RR. And man, and thank you, Mark C, for being here. The great Mark C, as they call you on the as you probably know, they call you on the great Fandom Menace streams out there. So we'll do it again soon, brother. This is number 5. I had a fantastic time talking about many things. Again, I could talk comics all night, as you know, comics art, comics history, comic shops, and of course the wonderful Fantastic Four and Jack Kirby, the great, and all that stuff. So Splash Page has been collecting 47 years now. That's about me. We're probably about the same age then, sir. So yeah, man. And thanks. Thank you, bro. I'll holler at me when you decide well, you don't have to be next week, it could be whenever, but when you decide what you want to do and what's our next big topic,
Well, if you come up with something that you want to cover, by all means, give me a holler and say, "Hey, have you read this?"
We'll
See
do.
if you get, something that I can manage to get through in a couple of days. Then
We'll
I'd be
do.
happy to do it as well. All right.
All right. Well, thank you, bro. Appreciate it. And
All right. You have a good one.
thanks, man. And I want to thank all you people for popping in. My good friends. New friends are the best friends, I say. Old ones are good too, but we're all old here. Well, R, that's too kind of you to say that. I love talking comics. Of course, we talk other things here too. We'll be talking. I love Star Trek, the real stuff, of course. Doctor Who, The Prisoner, Blake 7, many other geek things. But we have a special love for comics, though, and I don't like any new ones, of course, but I still like buying a bunch of old ones and everything. And talking about comic book artists we were doing earlier, we love talking about that kind of stuff. So I want to thank you all. And I love making new friends. Thank you so much. All of you have a great rest of the night and a great weekend. And again, I have no outro music because I'm used to. So we might do some Golden Age books. Splash Page Comics. My favorite is Silver and Bronze, but I do love me some Golden. And I got a buddy of mine. See, I know people with expertise all over the place. I got a friend of mine who's an expert on Golden Age comics because I'm not as much of an expert on that. And of course, my expertise mostly lies in the Silver and especially in the Bronze Age history. But I do love me some Gold. And so we'll talk about that, of course. Who knows? We might do some reviews on some of those comics too. I love me some Gold. So take care, my friends. Have a great one.